All right, everybody, welcome. Thank you for everybody else that was being patient. It's been a while. Right now you may notice I have a co-host, longtime friend. His name is Vaughn. Right, and shout out to him. He is someone that I've been trying to get on this platform for a very long time. He's like-minded just like us, you know what I'm saying, like-minded just like us, but he does have a pretty much a passion for what we're about to talk about. So Vaughn, I was gonna just let you open, and why you're here, who you are, where you're from, just a little bit introductory to what we're about to talk about yourself and this topic. Take it away.
All right, so my name is Vaughn and I'm from Jamaica. So basically, tonight we're supposed to be touching on phenotype versus genotype. We're just basically trying to explain that physical features are not a clear indication of race, family, genetic group. It's not always a clear indication of who belongs where. So you can have two different groups of people that share similar physical features but are not closely related. You can have two plants that are different family, but they share the same physical features. You can have the same thing with animals. As an example, with animals, you have the civet and the genet. They look like cats, but they're more closely related to the mongoose. As an example, and when it comes to people, an example of people sharing the similar physical features but not the same genetics, right, would be the people of the Pacific Islands and black people, because people in the Pacific Islands, there a lot of them tend to be phenotypically black, but genetically they're more closely related to Asians than they would to us, even though they look the complete opposite of Southeast Asians and identical or similar to us.
Yeah, so what we're gonna do right now is basically show you what our position is. So basically, we got in this conversation when Hidden Colors came out a while back. And he used to get on me. He was like, yo, this Hidden Colors thing is bullshit because it's saying that everybody in the world is one big Negro. And I'm like, nah, no one's gonna think that. They're gonna think that, they're just different parts of the black family. He's like, nah, that's not how they're teaching it. So he's been ragging on me the whole time. See, now everybody think that people from Papua New Guinea is black like us, right? And everyone's saying that's our brothers, those are our brothers and sisters. So we're coming from a scientific perspective. And then I know most of you guys here on the panel, we're Pan Africanists, but this is very detrimental to Pan Africanism as well. Like last night, I gave the example of Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods doesn't want to be considered black or be a part of the black family. Same thing with Dwayne the Rock Johnson. Dwayne the Rock Johnson, he's Samoan, right? And he's black, but he doesn't want to be. He doesn't want to be considered black. He obviously has embraced his Samoan heritage, his Samoan culture. So without further ado, what I'm gonna do right now is basically for those who don't understand like human migration or anything like that or whatever, or don't understand geography, because you're going to need to really understand geography to understand human migration so you can see the point on and I is trying to make, the point that we're trying to drive home right now. So right now, um I'm going to start presenting to let you guys know what we're talking about. And I'm also going to use, because you guys know I'm from Guyana. So Guyana is one of the only West Indian nations that has a lot a lot of indigenous people a part of their society. So
Yeah,
I'm gonna
14
be
different groups from what I'm aware, from what I was told. 14
yeah,
different indigenous groups.
14. Okay.
Yes, that's what I was told 3 years ago.
Oh, okay. I found like nine.
You found nine?
Yeah, they said from that when I did a Google search, I found like nine. But nonetheless, that's still a whole lot more than other people, Well, think.
Yeah.
So right now, simple Google search, right? Simple Google search when it comes to human migration, right? So this is it right here. So right here, as you can see, everyone knows Africa is the cradle of humanity, right? Cradle of humanity. So 200,000 years ago, right? So I think it was Professor James Smalls, or man, I forgot that African historian. I think he's from the Congo, and he's basically saying the same thing, that we go back 200-300,000 years. So
You
according to
talking, pardon me, not to cut you, historian or anthropologist. You're not talking about Diab, are you?
no, not Diop, it's some other dude that he's still around. I forgot his name. Oh, I was supposed to get one of his books. I think I do got one of his
Not
books.
David Davidson, right?
Nah, he has. I think he's like. I think he's from. He's from the Congo. I think he's Congolese.
No, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I forgot his name.
Yeah,
So right here, you guys, you can see my screen, right?
I can see it.
All right, okay. So you see down here, Africa's 200,000 years, right? You can see here, right? This is the Iberian Peninsula. As you can see here, the migration of humanity, right? For those of you who may not know, this is Europe right here, and it says 40,000 years versus the age of everything else. The reason for that, when they left, there was an ice sheet here, and humans couldn't venture off to the west. So they went here, right, through the so-called Iberian Peninsula, right, 100,000 years ago, right? And it went through here, right here, the little arrow right here, you see right there, that's India. And it went all through Asia, China, right? And then as of late, they went into like Mongolia. Mongolia's up here, Russia's up here, the Bering Strait, and you just see all of the places where they recently land. Australia, 50,000 years ago, right? So this is so this is all that you see. These are just examples that I'm showing you guys right here. Right here, there's a little map right here and telling you of the type of people.
And by the way, so this is also modern human migration. So prior to this, you had different homonyms migrating out of Africa, following food sources that would populate these areas. Like, so in the Middle East and in Europe, you had what we call the Neanderthal,
Yo, hold
and
on to that. I'm going to show a video of that. I'm just showing them roughly real quick, but
yeah,
I'm going to just put a pin in that. I'm just showing them real quick, right? And I'm going to get off of this. I'm just showing them migration patterns according to what science says. According
yeah,
to what science says. And then from that, we're just going to use common sense. We're just going to use common sense from that. So basically, that's what I wanted to share. So right now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to share the video, and it's going to describe it a little bit better than me, so we
yeah.
can all understand where we're coming from. All right. Hold on. Let me just find the video. Bear with me for a second here. Where the hell did it go? All right, here we go. So let me start it from here. And yeah, anytime, Vaughn, yeah, just chime in.
Yeah.
Tried to escape from Africa. Astonishingly, scientific research has shown that the 7.5 billion people who occupy the Earth today are the descendants of a woman who lived 200,000 years ago in Eastern Africa. Scientists call her mitochondrial Eve. Will you not follow along with me? The traces of how mankind spread by following the footsteps of the descendants of mitochondrial Eve? Mitochondrial Eve was born and lived in East Africa about 200,000 years ago. First, let's go to the place where she was born and raised through Google Earth. You can see a huge lake and a wide meadow. Lake Victoria and Serengeti Plains. You can also see Mount Kilimanjaro. The surface area of Lake Victoria is 59,947 square meters. It is a huge lake that is 38 times larger than London, 99 times larger than Seoul, 76 times larger than Singapore, The area within the region includes approximately 30,000 square kilometers of land, including the Serengeti National dormant volcano in Tanzania. It has 95 meters above sea level. It's the prey to migrate, also a place of fierce life. At that time, climate change caused the prey to migrate, and it is presumed that they moved along with the prey. Now you are looking at their migration routes from 150,000 to 100,000 years ago. L is mitochondrial E.
So I'm going to stop you here to show you guys something, and you need to pay attention to this as it shows you further migration patterns. So L will be for Lucy, right? Right? Will be for Lucy, or what we will call, well, Lucy is not modern Homo sapiens sapien, but let's say for argument's sake, L is modern Homo sapiens sapien because it's human migrational patterns, right? Modern human. So from L, you have different types. They're all human, but they're different branches of human, genetically speaking. So you have L, then you have L1, then below you have L0. Then if you go to like South Africa, you have L0, K, and others, right? So far, follows. You have L1 branching out to North Africa. Just look at the branches.
Eve, and LX are her descendants. Letters are human mitochondrial DNA haplogroup, arrows are migration paths. The number in the upper left corner of the screen is the estimated age. How would you have known this? We have DNA that is inherited only through females. It's called mitochondrial DNA. We can trace.
I'm going to skip because we all should know what mitochondrial DNA is. DNA that that women have. Men doesn't have active mitochondrial DNA, but women have it. It's passed through the woman. So we all know that. There's going to explain that to you. But what we're concentrating on right now is human migration out of Africa.
Below to view the mapping results by year. Now, let's watch the migration path of the mitochondrial Eve descendants again. About 60 to 80,000 years ago, a renewed expansion repopulated Africa with L2 and L3 phenotypes. About 50 to 60,000.
Vaughn, so L2 and L3, right? L2 and L3. So L2 and L3 is there, right? So we can see it. We can see there's already a change already.
1,000 years ago, L3 type African moved to Southwest Asia. All non-Africans are today descended from either M or N types, both descended from an Africa L3 type.
So already they're no longer African, they're descendants. They're no longer L types, they're descendants. And
even if for whatever reason evolution decided that, hey, we know we're going to keep the features, because depending on the type of migration, if it's a tropical migration versus one that's not a tropical migration, evolution could have decided, hey, you know what? There is no need to get rid of the kinky hair and the dark skin. But genetically, these people are now tens of thousands of years apart. They're no longer the same people, even though they have similar to identical features. All right.
Exactly. So we're talking genetics here. Please, guys, just follow me so you could understand what I'm trying to say, the point I'm trying to get at. We're going to get to, are these our people? Should we offer an olive branch to them, or should we smack an olive branch so that they get up? We're going to get there, but we're trying to denote who is Black phenotypically, culturally. We're doing that, but we have to do this first in order for us to understand who we are and who other people are.
So when not to touch you, right? So when we're using Black to reference people of African ancestry, right? That's of current African ancestry, meaning that right now, if you take a DNA test, it would show you which Africans right now in Africa that you're related to, whether it's a Nigerian, a Ghanaian, and the individual ethnic groups within these areas. So Black is being used as a reference to people of current African ancestry. That's what the reference. That's how we're using it.
Yeah, but we're gonna see how later on how it's gonna change. It's going to metamorphosis into something else that's going to be confusion due to history, pretty much due to history, and
Yeah.
joining other groups of people who has a very distorted version and ideology of who and what and black is. Not what African is, but what black
But
is.
Been very small, given that only two lineages survived. The M and N types, which left India about 600,000 years ago, arrive in Australia around 50,000 to 40,000. This was the Ice Age, and the seas near Indonesia were all land. It is called Sunda land. It is presumed that they crossed the sea by constructing a raft near present-day Bali.
All right. So we all know, right, that the Indians, when you follow it, the people in Asia genetically are our closest cousins. No one's saying, or no one would say, well, we're gonna get to Hidden Colors soon, because I'm gonna show you clips from Hidden Colors. No one is saying that a Chinese and a black person is the same person. That's insane. No one's saying an Indian from India is exactly the same like a black person. That's also insane. But genetically, they would be our closest cousins. When you look at this map, when it comes to human migration and groups come together, stay together, have a cohesion, they change genetically over time and they become something different or a variation of that. Remember, I'm quoting scientists and what Dr. Leonard Jeffrey says. He says, Africans are Africans. Everybody else that's not African is a variation or duplication of an African. So once you're out of Africa, you're no longer African. I hate when people say, "Oh, well, we all come from Africa." Bullshit. Show me where in this map a white man walked out of Africa. Show me in this map where someone from Aboriginal from Australia walked out of Africa. Someone from Indonesia walked out of Africa. Only black people walked out of Africa. That's like my pet peeve when people say, "Well, we all come from Africa." That's bullshit. Obviously, we all don't come from Africa. We have Africans and you have descendants of Africans. Period. Oh, and Vaughn, to pick up on it, what you were saying before, these people over here, I think I don't know if I missed it. Everybody over here, this whole region right here, right? Because there were already hominids there. You have Neanderthal,
Neanderthals, and when you
yes.
get into Asia, you get Denisovans, and you know
So you
those
have
are the most common hominins outside of in that area is going to be Denisovans and Neanderthals.
yes. So everything. So all where you guys where you see U X N M W, all that right there, those are Africans, right? That left a while ago and saw Neanderthals and they mated with Neanderthals. That's why all people outside of Africa has Neanderthal DNA. For a couple of hundred years, it was debated that, well, did these two people ever meet? If anyone know anything about anthropology and archaeology, when they start digging, the layers are very, very, very close by probably like about a couple hundred years or a couple decades. Like, wow, this is very close that these people meet. This is before genetics. This is before they understood what DNA is and what genetics is. So when that science came about, they test the bones of Neanderthals for DNA, and they found out what the DNA that Neanderthal was. And Europeans, Asians, they all had that because they were outside of Africa.
And by the way, when they make that statement, right, that statement applied to sub-Saharan Africans. So people in like East Africa, when you're dealing with like Ethiopians, Eritreans, and even when you go closer to the north, where you get to like the Sudanese people, and when you're dealing with Africans that are of mixed race or areas that they have a high mixed population, that doesn't apply, right? amongst these population that are mixed, you're gonna find Neanderthal and other non-current homonyms in these people.
Yeah, it's like
Mhm.
testing. Let me see, like African American. If you test African Americans, they're gonna have like a high concentration of European American DNA, not because they were also white people. No, it has to do with the history. We know about the history. So when we talk about this, you have to what Vaughn says. We're talking about people in their purest form back then when they do genetic testing. I'm gonna pretty much bring this to an end, but I wanted to go to the Pacific Island. To the Pacific Islanders in Indonesia.
They were the first
Well,
navigators of mankind. At this time, between New Guinea and Australia was land. Some of the eminent types that migrated to Australia between 50,000 and 40,000 years ago changed direction and head towards East Asia along the eastern coast, crossing the eminent type Eurasian grasslands that lived in Western Asia and heading to East Asia. Many races are born in Western Asia. I, U, H, V types go to Europe. At this time, Europe was inhabited by Neanderthals. Type X leaves West Asia a little later.
You heard that? Around this time, Europe was inhabited by Neanderthals. Like we said, we literally jumped the gun just to let you guys know, right? So all these people here that's spreading out, they're all coming from Europe, right? Because the Ice Age is over. So there's there's hominids there first that went there first, then the humans went there afterwards.
And heads for Siberia. It was a very cold ice age. I will introduce the life of our ancestors during.
Please remember these people going in Siberia, because we're going to talk about the people from Papua New Guinea. We're also going to talk about the people from Japan, right? Because there's a lot of claims. Again, according to Hidden Colors, the whole world is African, aka black. They're not using black interchangeably. They're using black as no, we're all black, we're all the same. They're making it
yeah, they
seem
basically what Tariq Nasheed did was make black a standalone race, this all-encompassing race that covers anyone that's basically not white, anyone with any type of melanin in his skin, any type of pigment got grouped together under the term black. So now we no longer know what we're talking about when we say black,
but you know what?
right?
You can't put all that on Tariq Nasheed, because who he got that idea from? He got that idea from Ivan Van Sertima,
Mm-hmm.
Professor James Small, a little bit
Mm-hmm.
Professor James Small, Dr. Claude Anderson. If any one of you watch Hidden Colors, whatever, these are the things that they're saying, and you're gonna see where they're gonna say it's African, but we're gonna disprove all that.
During the Ice Age through another video. The M and N types, derived from L3, served as the basis of mitochondrial DNA for today's offspring. Currently, Europeans do not have M-type mitochondrial DNA, which is unusual. Between 40,000 and 30.
They don't have a particular type of mitochondrial DNA that's unusual, because they're not us, right? So if they're not us, and you see all these branches going out, let me just speed up a little bit because I want to get to North America. Like, if you guys want to go a little bit more in depth, you see the title of the video. I just want to go to North America. All right.
This is the time when the Earth's temperature rose after the last ice age. Sea levels would rise again, but the Bering Sea would have been covered in ice. The period between 14,690 and 12,890 before was the Bowling Allerate warming period. The Nordic Fennoscandian ice sheet begins to melt. This is the period when I, U, V, J, H, and V types began to migrate to Northern Europe. Types A, B, C.
Again, right here, what African is going to a B line straight here? Again, once you leave here through this migration right here, this blue line right over here, you're something else. You're not
Yeah, you're
black.
breaking up into you're breaking off and becoming different groups. And the funny thing is, when you look at the blue dot, some of those people in that area still look identical to the people, identical to the people that are on the continent, in some places of the continent. But genetically, now you're talking a gap of 10, 20,000 years of human evolution. So even if they retain the similar to identical look of some of the people that's now still on the continent, they're not the same people.
Exactly. Even when you go down over there, you see them going down into Asia, into Australia, into Indonesia, into right here, Papua New Guinea will be right here. I don't know if you can see my cursor right there. If you guys know the big landmass over there is Australia, and above it, you know, what I'm saying, would be like Papua New Guinea will be right over there. The Median Islands will be right here, but it's a little small island. You can't see it, right? All these people are somebody, they're not African no more,
Yeah,
right? So
and even
right,
yeah,
so right now, so
D,
so you're gonna see these people are what? They're like, this is like Russia up over there. So you have people in China, all this is China. Pretty much all this is China, right? And then you have all these people going over here to Siberia to cross the Bering Strait into Alaska, right? But again, like Vaughn said, even if they're still black, phenotypically, my question is to anyone listening to this: how are they African?
D, X, who lived in Alaska, moved to South America. Some of them arrived in South America 12,000
More different genetic markers.
years ago. At that time, there was a huge continental ice sheet on the North American continent. The lore on
All right, that's pretty much it for that. I think we kind of drove that home when it came to that. So this is what we're trying to show you guys when it comes to genetics. These people are not genetically African. We have to advance, us African people being the first scientists, we have to advance past, well, it looks like this and it looks like that. No, we are the first scientists. We have to go past what's skin deep. You know what I'm saying? We have to go beyond what the surface, what something looks like. Not everything that is the same looks the same. Like you look like, take it for like snowflakes. You may think snowflakes all look the same, but no, all snowflakes are different. They're literally all different. Um, I don't know if you got something to say, but I'm about to pull up the next slide. So just
yeah.
to give,
So
yeah, go ahead.
like so example, right? When you look at the Papuans, right? When you look at the people in Papua New Guinea, the people in Papua New Guinea, they look similar to us in terms of skin complexion and hair texture, right? So if you was to get some of the people from Papuan and you will blend them into, let's say, the Black American community, you might not be able to tell the difference. But if you put some of us into their population, they can look at you and tell that there's a difference. Even though you share the same phenotype in terms of skin complexion and hair texture, the shape of your face, the skull, it looks different. And not only that, even though the Papuans share similar to identical facial features and skin complexion like us and some of the people on the African continent, right? They're more closely related to people genetically that are of straight hair and pale skin than they would to us, even though we're similar to identical in terms of phenotype.
All right. So what I'm gonna do now, y'all, I'm gonna start showing y'all clips from Hidden Colors. Fair use, calling out fair use. This is for research and journalistic purposes. This is for teaching. I'm not getting any money or want money or anything off of what I'm showing. Calling fair use, fair use. So hold on a second. Let me, so this is Hidden Colors right here. So a lot of things that a lot of black people are saying and stuff like that was something that was being said for a long time, but Hidden Colors pushed it over the edge. To me, no disrespect to them. I mean, I love Professor James Small, Dr. Umar is cool. You have Anthony Broward's on here. It's, even though I do respect them, it was being to me a little bit intellectually lazy, and and black sensationalism, they didn't do what we just did. Break it down.
The documentary was irresponsible. There was some good, accurate information in the documentaries. I have like a love-hate relationship with the documentaries because some of it was so problematic. Because one of the reasons why we're having so much confusion around who's black is because of that documentary, because it blew up. Before Hidden Colors, you had the books. You have a lot of this pseudo scholars throughout the decades, but this book kind of like picked up the pieces from those books and pushed it on us. And these documentaries are being sold for dirt cheap, so they push these pseudo ideas onto us, and now we have this problem where we don't know who's black or what black mean. And this is what I predicted would happen 11 years ago.
Yeah, well, the problem is that everyone gets. So if someone says I'm Ghanaian and someone say, "Hey, I'm from Indonesia," and they're coming out jet black like Wesley Snipes, oh yeah, you black like me, and black people's already claiming to be black. You know what I'm saying? No, that's not how it works. But let me play this so you can see what we're talking about. Again,
when you read the European philosophers, what did they say? They often said that Africa had two great civilizations, Egypt in the north and Asia in the south. The white man said this. So they often, in ancient times, Asia was considered a part of Africa or Africa's second civilization. They said that you go to Asia and it's nothing but a carbon copy of Africa because it was settled by the Africans. A lot of people.
Now, where is that proven?
That's not true. It doesn't make it doesn't. So that's not true on so many levels. By the time people, again, it's not a beeline, right? Where you had people leave Africa on a boat and then they land in Asia, and the people that were there were still genetically the same as the people on the African continent. No, by the time the people made it to Asia, there were so many break-offs, so many splinters into different groups that genetically, even if those people are dark skinned, those people are not still African.
And I think what the problem is, people don't understand how huge the Earth is, how huge the planet is. That it'll take you forever on foot to circumnavigate, let's say, like 100 miles, right? For you to do 100 miles on foot. People migrate due to, hey, I wonder what's there, out of curiosity, and food sources and climate and environment. If people find that an environment is suitable and they have a food source and water source, they're going to stay there until another person says, you know what, I want to know what's over there, and so on and so forth. It's like they're shrinking the world to this little tiny place that's only as big as California, that people could do it like in 2-3 lifetimes.
Oh, and not to cut you, let me show you this, right? Boom. So in the Philippines, right, you had the geneticists. They were looking at two group of people. Right?
Hold on. We're gonna get to the Filipinos. So let just keep that in mind. We're gonna get to the Filipinos.
And there are pyramids in China, in Japan. They have an underwater pyramid that a lot of people don't know about. And you can go there now, and that's one of those ancient mysteries. But again, pyramids are all over the planet.
Another lie. Those aren't pyramids. A pyramid is when they say pyramids, they're talking about the pyramids, not even in Sudan. They're talking about the pyramids of Giza, right? Those are not pyramids, right? They're structurally similar to pyramids, but they are not pyramids. They're trying to draw a line of like someone is trying to replicate the pyramid of Giza in Mexico, in the Yucatan Peninsula, in Japan, in China, in America. Those aren't pyramids. Structurally, they're not pyramids.
And you know what I've always told people, right? So I'm glad that you kind of touched on that, right? For some reason, people say, hey, if there are pyramids all around the world, then the people had to be aware of each other and they were more or less copying from each other. And that's also not true. So, one of the things about being humans is that people can build similar structure out of the same necessity, right? From the same idea. Some things are just human occurrences, and you can't show that the different places around the world that were building these superstructure, you cannot show that they were in communication with each other, that they were in contact with each other, that they were even aware of each other at the time that these superstructures were being built, right? So you can't say, well, because there are pyramids in Egypt and the pyramids in Egypt are older than the pyramids everywhere else, then all those other people were aware of the pyramids in Egypt and they were building pyramids from them. No, you would have to show that these people had contact the with everyone else and that they were learning from them, and you can't prove it.
Or at least prove that they had the same customs, right? There's no there's no pyramids in India, but those are our closest relatives genetically. So you're saying that the Indians are our closest relatives. They didn't copy anything from us. They didn't have our knowledge or science or anything like that. Then a couple 100,000 years later, we see them in China and in Japan. It doesn't make any sense. That's a huge gap. That's huge. Forget about in the Americas. That's that's much later.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. I just wanted to mention that. See, it's any architect or anyone organized say those just because they have the shape doesn't mean that they're pyramids. This is where we're saying they're being irresponsible.
It's of black people. You have the money.
So these are the negritos of the Philippines. So this is doctor. I mean, he passed. You know, rest in peace, rest in power. To him. But this is Dr. Ricardo Rashidi. I put it back a little bit. Let me play it up to till it gets to him.
That there are pyramids all over Asia, and there are pyramids in China, in Japan. They have an underwater pyramid that a lot of people don't know about, and you can go there now, and that's one of those ancient mysteries. But again, pyramids are all over the planet.
So in Asia today, you have pockets of black people. You have the Mani. You have in southern Thailand. You have a related group in northern Malaysia, sometimes called Sakai, Sekai. You have the Andaman Islanders, and there are at least two groups. One group is called the Onge, O-N-G-E, or O-N-J-E. I think it's O-N-G-E. And another is called the Jawara, J-A-R-A-W-A. And then you have black populations in the Philippines, sometimes called Negritos or Eta, or I think we should call them Acta, which just means the people. You have a tradition of a similar group in Taiwan. These are the diminutive Africoids. These are the small blacks, similar in many ways to the Twa or so-called pygmies in Central Africa.
I can't do it no more.
No,
That's wrong.
No.
That's insane.
No.
He said they're not called. That there would be. Wow, there's so much to unpack here.
Listen, and the funny thing is, he got that from European travelers that came in contact with Africans, and they landed in the Pacific Islands, and they labeled the people little black people because this is also the pre-genetic era. So when Europeans will come in contact with Africans, and they will go other places, and they will see dark-skinned, kinky-haired people, they made the assumption that, hey, these people are the same from here, when they were not. They were ignorant. They didn't know any better. And whenever they would reach to these places and they would see the dark-skinned, kinky-haired people, they will log it in their journals as we came in contact with but Negroes over here, not understanding evolution, human migration, genetics. These are ignorant people, and then he kind of like second that nonsense.
Yeah, and he also misclassified them in a way, but it goes they will be considered not Negroid but Mongoloid because they found them in Asia. Negroid is for people in Africa. They found them in Asia, just south of China, right? Indians from India would be considered Mongoloid. People from China and Japan and all those and Pacific Islanders, they also will be classified as a Mongoloid. But to what you're saying, oh, but they look like black people, so you're gonna I guess call them Negroes, and you're gonna say, oh, they're just like the Twa people. No, they're not. They're not from Central Africa. They're not
No, they're
Congolese
not.
people.
Those same people that got labeled little black people, because that's what the Europeans had named them, little black people. Those people are more closely related to people that have pale skin and straight hair.
Thank you.
Pale skin.
Compared to human migration, to the
Yeah,
genes. If you were to go to Papua New Guinea, right, and God forbid there was a murder or something like that, and blood was spilled, and you're the only African American there, right, or African there, and and three people were involved, and you were one of those three people, and the rest of them were from Papua New Guinea. They're gonna know who is the African American and African versus the people from Papua New Guinea. Like, because your genes is gonna be freaking different.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
gonna be different.
Even and he spoke about the Jarawa people. So the Jarawa people would be some of the first people to settle outside of Africa, and they're the darkest people on the planet. And when you look at them, and when I look at them, I see black people. Those people are more closely related to Indians than they are to us. As
Exactly.
as identical as they may be to us, those people are more closely related to Indians. That person right there that you're looking at, that jet black person with kinky hair that you're looking at right there, is more closely related to an Indian with pale skin and straight hair than they would be to us. This is just how evolution and human migration works.
Exactly. Like these people, like we hardly know people that look like this. You know what I'm saying? In our day to day. You know what I'm saying? On the continent, there's more variation there, but these people are somebody different. Like, again, I think when you have people that say that, well, they're black like us, I think they're thinking in 2-3 lifetimes. They came out of Kenya, went
Yeah.
through all of that, and then, oh, my grandmother got to Australia in 2
Yes.
generations. Like, no,
It's
that's
not.
not how it works.
Yeah, that's not. It's not like moving from down south to New York. It's not that.
Bro, imagine on foot. Even if you didn't do it on foot, right? No, there was no horses. There was no horses back then. No, there was no horses back then. They're doing this on foot. On foot. No one's walking hundreds of thousands of miles and on foot. This is what people don't understand, that they don't understand a grasp of science, a grasp of how immensely large the planet is, right? And people, when they migrate, they're looking for food, shelter. There can be certain dangers there, because there's animals there. So people are kind of like nomadic for a reason. But yeah, let it continue for a little bit.
Yeah, just this scale and just the scale of human migration and human history in general. Let me tell you, you can have two groups. Example, look at the Philippines. In the Philippines, they have pale skin, straight hair people, and dark brown, kinky hair people, right? And they both eventually landed in the Philippines. Both of those groups are directly related to each other. The straight hair, pale skin group broke off from the brown skin, kinky hair group, and they don't even know that they're related to each other in any capacity. They don't even know how they figured out that the geneticists figured out that they were related. They went down into their genes and they found out that, oh, these people are separated by something like 20,000 years of evolution is what separated two. But those people don't even know that they're related. So it's just showing the scale of human migration, how splintering off and becoming other people, how complex it is, and the amount of time that can pass. Those people came from the exact group that settled in one place, and because the amount of time that have passed, they don't even know anything about each other. They have no idea.
Yeah, yeah,
Just to help, just to help you understand this, the time, how much time passes in between.
yeah, but yeah, that's why I find like if anyone that studies species and animals and we all know I don't like giving Darwin this credit because I'm pretty our ancestors already knew this. You could look at certain animals and tell like okay these animals look the same but they're not the same. A human ego says that well they're animals I'm human I'm different. No you're not. No you're not. Not genetically speaking. You share the same DNA with a tree, with a plant, right? I don't want to get off topic, but we are all a part of creation. We're not separate from each other, right? We're not separate from each other, but we are different, right? So we have to understand just because we see something that's the same doesn't mean it's exactly the same.
Of a similar group in Taiwan. These are the diminutive Africoids. These are the small blacks, similar in many ways to the Twa or so-called pygmies in Central Africa. These are very, very ancient people who left Africa perhaps 60, 70, maybe 100,000 years ago and became isolated.
The Padang people.
So see, Dr. Makoto Rashidi, he was right. They're old, they're very old people about 100 to 75,000 years ago, more around like 200,000 years ago, and they were isolated. No, so he just said the same thing that we said is not true, and genetics says not true, and he should have known better. They did not. The Twa people did not leave and stayed the Twa people to go to and become the Jarawa people. That is wrong, and that's where he's totally irresponsible, and that's why, our brother Vaughn here is like, nah, this is bullshit, and this is where we have like the love and hate relationship for Hidden Colors. It has a lot of our favorites, but a lot of things that they're saying is
Yeah,
is
because
just
the documentary get progressively better and worse simultaneously. Because there's a lot of information I feel in the second and the third one that in terms of American history, things that you can look up and go, oh, okay, this is interesting, this is cool. I didn't know this, but it's the pseudoscience and the mislabeling of other groups of people and just making black this all encompassing race that covers everyone that is dark skinned. Where
all right.
this guy, they just showed a bunch of guys, a bunch of people that belong to their own group and have their own genetics at this point and have their own languages. And hey, they're black like us. No, they're not.
Yeah, they're just simply not, and the whole thing. We're gonna get to the native Aboriginal stuff. My whole thing that I've been saying, okay, if we are just like them, can you please show me linguistic and cultural similarities? Please go. That no one could, and you can't do it. You can't do it. No one forgets their culture of who they are or where they came from deliberately. You know who you are, right? But we're going to get into that later. Let me just look at the chat and just give some shout outs. So thank you, Anthony, for coming through. Trigger Happy, thanks again for coming through. Our brother Bakari, I don't know if he's still in the chat. Thank you for coming through. Buana, What's up, peace? Thank you for coming through. Like I said, our brother Anthony McCall, Bit of Medicine podcast. We had a good show last night. It kind of transcended into what we're talking about right now, but that was a good show last night. That's the Bit of Medicine podcast, 8:00 every Saturday. Go check it out. Like I said, our brother Buana, right? Ditso. It's been a while, man. It's been a while, brother. It's been a while, right? Our brother Ditso, Trigger Happy, and I think that's about it for now. I think we have someone new here. He's not familiar. I'm not gonna try to butcher your name, but thanks for coming through, brother. And we have Niru. Thanks you again for coming through. And yeah, thank you all for coming through and listening to it. Keep the chat going. I'll be very curious to hear what you guys have to say about this. All right, so let me. Go ahead.
So I seen one guy say that even Africans on the African continent are genetically different, so genes don't matter. Yeah, we get it, but these dark skinned kinky hair people, they're not not similar to anyone on the continent. They're not similar to anyone on the continent, right? There's no group that you can. There's no group that you can say, oh, these are exactly the same people.
Like, put it like this: there's certain diseases. We all know there's certain diseases that certain races get. So we know Africans in diaspora, right, get sickle cell, right? Sickle cell anemia, right? That's not something I doubt. I could be wrong. You guys could prove me wrong for that. I don't think someone from Indonesia or the quote unquote black people from the Philippines and the Jarawa people and people from Papua New Guinea get sickle cell anemia. They just don't. It's something that only affects African Americans, right? I don't think I'm going to jump the gun here. I don't think Native Americans get sickle cell anemia, but we got Negroes saying that black people are the real Native Americans, or if black people are the real Native Americans, well, these other people. Native Americans don't get sickle cell anemia, but whatever. We go there another date. Let me play again. I like Dr. Umar. Whatever, say what you want about him. I get it, but if you all remember the Men's Society, saying that part where the guy goes, you fucked up, right? And he's gonna mess up.
He went to Japan, and they went into the mountains of Japan. Now, this is still there. They still carry on some of the African just woman.
Twa, or so-called pygmies in Central Africa. These are very, very ancient people who left Africa perhaps 60, 70, maybe 100,000 years ago and became isolated.
The Padang people, that's a group of people in Asia, and the African-Asian connection is still there. They still carry on some of the African cultures and traditions in certain parts of Asia. I once had a professor of mine working on my doctorate.
All right. Here's the problem with what he just said, right? So you have people in Asia that are more or less.
He was talking about this because I don't want to dive into that. He was talking about. Hold on, let me back it up a little bit because it's kind of hard to find these timestamps without skipping far. Hold on a second. Let me see. He'll show you what he was talking about. So the women. No, okay. I have to go back further. He's talking about the women that have the rings around their neck.
Mm-hmm.
And there's women in Indonesia that have that, but there's also women in Africa that has that same thing. So
all right, right. So here's the problem. This is like that pyramid thing that they did, right?
So
you have to.
You see what I'm talking about, right?
Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about, right? He would have to show that the people in Africa already developed that practice and then carried that same practice outside of Africa into Asia, and that's the reason why that practice is there. Because even though the people in Africa have that practice and the people in Asia have that practice, right? They could have been developed thousands of years apart, right? You don't know if the people in Africa started this practice of putting the rings around their neck after the people in Asia or after the people in India. You would have to be able to show that this practice of wearing the rings around your neck is something that is at least tens of thousands of years old to have made it all the way out of Africa into Asia. This
So
is the
basically,
problem
you have to
with it.
show if it was a continuing practice, not just
Yes, but
say, "Hey, this
yeah,
is not a coincidence."
yes, because what you're doing, when you do that, all you're doing is pattern recognition. Oh, because these people over here have the same practice as these people over here, and because these people are older, it had to have come from here. But in
So
order
take it
for
like
that
this.
to work,
Take it like this. So
so in
something as
order,
simple. So take it like this. Something as simple as piercing your ears or your nose. Obviously, Africans were the first people that did that. That doesn't mean that the people that's doing it in Indonesia got it from the Africans. It's just something that people just do. But you can't say, "Oh, it's because the Africans did it first."
yeah, but you don't. But he doesn't know if Africans did it first, though. He doesn't.
Yeah.
What he's doing is because Africa it has the oldest civilization on Earth, the people automatically assume that Africans did this first, but you don't know if Asians just happen to have come up with the practice of wearing the rings around their neck, and then Africans started doing it after without any connection or knowledge of each other. You don't know if the people in India have the same practice as the people in that area in Asia without having any connection with each other. Because people, you can come up with an idea right now, and someone else can come up with that idea on the next part of the planet, having ever met you, right?
Especially it
So
being a span of thousands of years. So
yeah,
let me get through this because we got a lot more to cover. But
yeah.
we get you.
Their necks. So this just shows that the African Asian connection is still there. They still carry on some of the African cultures and traditions in certain parts of Asia. I once had a professor of mine working on my doctorate tell me that she went to Japan and they went into the mountains of Japan. Now, this isn't a conscious woman by most definitions, but she couldn't wait to come back and tell me this. She said, Umar, I was in Japan. We went up into the spiritual temples of Japan and we sat down in one of the temples waiting for the priest to come out and teach us a little bit about what they believe and what they stand for. She said, Umar, they walked out of the temples and their skin was just as black as ours. They had gray afros because they were elders. Now, she said the phenotype looked like the modern Asian, but she said the skin was black and they had gray afros, hair standing up on top like Don
King. So these are the Anu people of Japan. So you can see, I don't know where the jet blackness is coming from or whatever, but this is in black and white, and they always do that with the. They never show you pictures in color, but this is in black and white. But I'll take it forward. Let's say they're tan, right? They're very tanned people, right? So again, they're saying blackness. I gotta tell Umar, according to his story, I saw these black people that look like you. Knowing that Dr. Umar is part of the diaspora, is a direct descendant of a continental African. No, they look just like you, Dr. Umar. So she's assuming, making that assumption, if the story is true, that is black people that look like you, they're your people. So simple. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen and I'm going to show you just a little research where you're gonna see who these people are and see how black they are. Keep in mind, we know about human migration and where we start kind of falling off of who's black and who isn't genetically black, right? So right here, simple research. The Ainu people. Really? So in Japan, these are people from southern Japan. Real quick, that's if you don't know what the spelling is, because they flashed it real quick.
All Eurasians are. This guy Nero says all Eurasians are a subset of Africans. If you know that, you would not be making these statements. I don't know what that means.
This is what he's saying.
No, up.
Oh, I see it.
Yeah.
All Eurasians. Now, this is how I could tell someone is kind of new. Vaughn, what are the things that I hate when people talk about Asia? Eurasian is number one, a new term, and it pisses me off because for years it was just called Asia and Europe. They combine your Asia because, again, you gotta understand, white people are very, very inadequate about their place in the world. They always gotta center themselves in the middle of the world. If anything, Europe is a part of Asia, and Europe will be a peninsula of Asia. The fact you're gonna attach a little tiny small peninsula, and it's not even and put Europe for, that's just a pet peeve of mine on when it comes to geography. So he's saying all Eurasians are a subset of Africans. If you know what, okay, yes, a subset. They're not Africans. So we're basically saying the same thing on Nauru. They're not Africans. They're a subset of Africans. They're a version of Africans. They're not Africans. So let me put it for people like this who don't really fully understand. Do you and your cousin have the same grandparent, whether it be grandfather or grandmother? They say yes. So does that mean you and your cousins the same? You and your brother, you and your siblings have the same parent? Yes. Does that mean you are 100% genetically identical to your sibling? No. You have chromosomes, and your chromosomes are not going to be exactly identical, right? Your cousin is not going to be exactly identical to you, even though that you share a common relative. I should use cousin, not brother and sister. Your cousin, you guys have a common relative that you both share and have, but you are not exactly, you are not there. You see what I'm trying to say? You are not them, right? That's your cousin. Your cousin's not your sister. Your cousin's not your brother. Just because your cousin's not your sister, your brother, doesn't mean that you're not related. It's your cousin. So by saying, hey, look, that's not my cousin or my sister, that's still my family. That's just my cousin. That's my second cousin. That's how it works. So Nauru, I don't know why you're fighting us. We're basically saying the same thing.
So you have this trigger happy guy, right? He says, so it's likely the case that particular culture aspect you see in Asia is due to these migrations from Green Sahara. But if that's the case, you have to show that it was developed there first, right? Some things are just human occurrences, right? So people tend to make up similar stories without being directly related to each other, without being in contact with each other. An example of this is male savior being born of a virgin birth. That's a story that for some reason people that make that story up across culture, regardless of race, without having contact with each other. And these stories are written hundreds, thousands of years apart without copying from the next, without learning from the next. So some things are just human occurrences. And because these things are occurrences, we assume that they must be directly connected, or they must have got this one from the older civilization, when it's not necessarily true. You can even have two people living right by each other, inventing something that is the same or similar out of the same necessity. Doesn't
Exactly.
mean that they're necessarily getting one from the other.
Exactly. So right here, so the Ainu people, they're a mixture of Russian, Korean, and Chinese people, right? This is the spelling. Study who they are. Study who they are. Right? You can see right here, if you want to be lazy about it, you have regions with significant populations, Japan and Russia, right? Right. And when you go to the history of how they became to be, you're going to see is the amalgamation of these people. You see here, you have a picture of him. He ain't black. He ain't got no afro. Even in Hidden Colors, they didn't show you some dude with an afro. They didn't show you this jet black dude like the Zorara people. They showed you someone who you know what I'm saying, who is melanated, right? That I wouldn't necessarily, me personally, call black, but it's a melanated person. He's not the typical looking Japanese person, but he is not what we will call, if he was here among us, a black person, right? So who these people are. These people are Russian, Chinese, and they're in the region of Korea, right? So they're Asians. Again, if they were among us, they would not be considered black. So Dr. Umar messed up, right?
All right, so this Nora guy says black people are adopted to warm climate. Those who simply left Africa and remained in warm climate remained black. It is not that hard, guys. You are so wrong. That sounds so. It sounds so poetic, but it's so wrong. And he must be new here because we explained this already, right? So we explained that people migrating out of Africa that had warm migration patterns retained the dark skin and the kinky hair. But genetically, they're no longer the same because they're separated by tens of thousands of generations, tens of thousands of years. So that's
and they're
not even.
within particular groups within themselves. So there's genes being activated within that particular group that wouldn't be activated in other groups, and also depend to where their environment. Those also play factors why they're genetically different.
And then the BBN Black Business Networks guy said that this sounds really FBA-ish and divisive.
Now
Well,
that's our
we
brother Bakari, man. He could be trolling. I don't know if you are brother Bakari, but I
no,
hope you're
this
laying
is
around.
well,
But
hopefully he is. But listen, we're not saying not to we're not saying not to align with these other dark skinned kinky hair people, these people that are other people that are black in terms of phenotype. We're not saying, hey, we can't ever align with them because we might be, facing the same struggle. What we're saying when it comes to the conversation of race, that even though we look the same, not so much. Not so much. We're not the same people. It's not like a Jamaican and an African American. A Jamaican and an African American, they go do a blood test is going to show the current Africans in Africa that they're related to. Those people go do a DNA test is going to show the people in the surrounding regions that they're related to, even if they look like them or the complete opposite.
yeah. So, and you also have to understand, guys, that speaking towards, why we look the same, it has to do with environment. If people that migrated pretty much went to a tropical climate, tropical area. So we all know melanin is protect yourself from the sun, creates vitamin D, so on and so forth. So nature is not gonna dramatically or drastically change your skin tone, because it's advantageous for you to have that particular skin tone until when you go up into Europe, and then okay, we're having a different conversation, right? That's when those people change. So the people that's in Russia and Siberia and eventually go out into Asia, that's why their phenotype look different. And I don't see anyone arguing, that related to the white Chinese man over there, because those are his cousins. So we're looking at these on people from the Philippines and the Negritos, and on all the people from Taipei and Thailand, right? Those are their people too, but we're not claiming them. So why are we only claiming the dark version of them and not the light skinned version of them, knowing that those two the dark Chinese man and the light-skinned Chinese man, the dark-skinned Japanese man and the light-skinned Japanese man, they're more related to them than us, but we only want to claim the dark ones. I find that very convenient and very hypocritical. You should just claim them all.
Yeah, where does it stop? This is the problem with making black as all in race, encompass everyone that is dark skin. So this guy says Africa is also genetically diverse phenotype. The information informed by bioculture and environmental aspect. If we went by the host argument, the only black people are in West Africa, sub-Saharan Africa. So when we say black, we're making reference to people that are sub-Saharan, people that are of current sub-Saharan ancestry. So everyone, everyone else,
everyone real quick. I don't want to get like just make it quick. I don't get caught in the chat too much. I'm gonna put a link in the chat eventually. Then everyone's gonna come up and we're gonna have a discussion. I just want to get through. I don't have that much to go. I just want to get through this presentation real quick because, bro, these cats, these are smart dudes. We will be here until the sun come up. But let me just get through the presentation and then we can have it out. We can have it out later. So let me just get through this. So basically, Dr. Umar was talking about the Anu people, and they're not even directly from Africa. They're directly, obviously, because they're Japanese, from Asia. And if you guys were here in the beginning, you'll see how these guys are tens of thousands of years apart, right? So tens of thousands of years apart from different haplogroups, from different genetic sources, to different language, different custom, different everything. There's nothing African about them except for their skin color. That's all that we're saying. If you guys are adding anything else to that, you're adding anything else to that. We're not talking about culture. We're not talking about how the white man sees us. We're not talking about none of that stuff. Try to stay on subject. This all we're talking about is genetically, and after genetically, we could get into custom if we have the same custom as them. I have no problem with that. But right now we're doing the genetic thing so we could move forward in the conversation. All right, so where am I right now? So let me play a little bit more of Hidden Color. Again, like we were saying, Hidden Color is not it's a mixed bag. It's a mixed bag. So let me just finish playing this out.
They sat down and she said, I couldn't believe these were black men. They were Japanese, but they were black men. When I went over to Indonesia, I went there at night and I would see Ellen would draw the people that he conquered in various parts of the world.
Hold on, let me find the timestamp so I can play this. Remember, fair use.
History.
One of the earliest groups that I can find archaeologically would be the Folsom people, Folsom. That's why you go out, you look at your map, you find various areas that we call the Folsom areas, Folsom, Arizona, Folsom, Nevada. You go out in New Mexico, you find Folsom Prison. And you find one of the biggest archaeological and oldest digs in America is called the Folsom Archaeological Findings out there, where he found all these African artifacts in the ground.
Didn't Dr. Claus say all these African artifacts in the ground?
Come on, Doc.
Is it just me? He said the Folsom people are African. So let's let it play and see if they could solidify and verify that fact besides just talk.
6,000 years ago, Asians began to migrate across the Bering Straits into the United States. And they came into the United States across the Bering Straits into Canada, then down to the northern part of the United States and down into the southern part. And they met and interbred with blacks, those Folsom people. And otherwise, that's why American Indians never had slant eyes and were never yellow skin. They became round eyed and brown skin and red skin.
Whoa. So how did the blacks get there? Vaughn, can you please tell me how the blacks get there? He said the Asians, this is an FBA argument, Brother Bakari. How did you get there?
They swam straight from Africa here. How else?
This
Oh
is what
my
I
God.
keep asking you. The Asians met the black people there. Can you please tell me, without a doubt, with archaeological find, using archaeology, anthropology, how did the black people get there? If these people are fake, right, and they're Johnny come latelys, please tell me, how did the Folsom people get there? They're not showing you. They're just talking out their ass. This is not how science works. You just can't make a claim and say, well, I made a claim that means to be true. Where's your scientific evidence to back it up?
Son said these Africans coming out of world. By the time the people got there, by the time the people landed into Asia, how many years passed? How many years passed?
No, but he's
How
saying
much
the blacks were there already. He's saying the
Yeah,
Asians that came through the Bering Strait met the black people there, and they intermingled, integrated with them. That's what he just said. So where the black people come from?
they swam there.
This is what I'm saying. This is the part that is frustrating. That's why people, they don't understand science. They don't understand human migration. They don't understand anthropology. You just can't make a claim and say it's true because it just sounds right to me. No one gives a damn about your feelings. We want to know, how did you come up with that? You have to show and prove. This is the whole thing about science. Science is a tool that needs to be used to verify, to understand the natural world, right? If you're saying something, you should be able to use science, anthropology, archaeology, genetics to verify what you're saying. He did none of that. He said, well, I just said so. My name is Dr. Claude Anderson. They found these African bones with all the Folsom people. And then we just met some Asians. He's full of shit. I'm sorry. He's full of shit.
And and the thing is, like I predicted 11 years ago, this would do more harm. This would actually do more harm than good. And this would do more harm than good because it caused so much confusion around who is black and what does black mean. This type of rhetoric is the reason why people could say, well, I'm black but not African, right? And you're like, you like what do you mean when you say black? Is the black being used to reference people that are of current African ancestry, or is just black this everyone that's dark skinned? Right? And this is the problem that I had with it 11 years ago. This is the problem that I predicted would happen, and it's the problem that is happening now. This is why you have these idiots who get online and said, well, I'm black, not African, and I never said you were African. I just said they were black. Well, what is black? What is black? Is there a haplogroup called black? Is there a country called black? Is there a continent called black? When you say black, what do you mean? What do you mean?
And like Dr. Clark says black tells you what you look like. Black doesn't tell you who you are. Right? So this is what we mean, especially me, by this is a very irresponsible documentary. To me, this is more of a feel-good thing that they're doing. You know, a typical racial self-masturbation type thing that we were here and we don't have to lie about our history. We're already great. We don't have to lie about our history. Like, why
we don't have to.
We weren't here in America. We still did great things. You take America. Why do we have to be on all four corners of the planet doing everything in 2 lifetimes? And then everyone piggyback off of us. It doesn't mesh up scientifically. It just doesn't. He said African. Anybody in the chat, please show me where the black people came from that was here already. Show me anthropology, archaeological work, show me language, show me a figurine, show me genetics, some genetic journal where these black people like you and me were already here. Then these Asian people came down. Show me what Dr. Claude Anderson said. That's what I want to know.
Archaeological and oldest digs in America. It's called the Folsom Archaeological Findings out there, where he found all these African artifacts in the ground.
And he said African artifacts. African. Please, again, show me where some African people came here. He said 85 BC, 8500 BC. Show me where some African people came here 8500 BC. They could test these bones. Dr. Claude is saying this. Dr. Claude is not a historian. He's not an anthropologist. He's not a geneticist. What is Dr. Claude Anderson? He's an economist. He's an economist. He deals with numbers. So where is he getting this information from? That's all that I'm saying, people. That's all I'm saying. Like, come on, we need to think.
16,000 years ago, 6,000 years ago, Asians began to migrate across the Bering Straits into the United States. And they came into the United States across the Bering Straits into Canada, then down to the northern part of the United States and down into the southern part. And they interbred and met and interbred with blacks, those Folsom people, and otherwise.
How? Wait. So I don't know. Maybe he's using it interchangeably. How did African people turn to blacks now? This is where I'm getting confused. If Folsom people are Africans, all of a sudden when the Asians come from the Bering Straits, those Africans turned blacks now? I don't know. Maybe I'm just nitpicking, but I just find that odd that he can't stay consistent.
Eyes and were never yellow skin. They became round eyed and brown skin and red skin.
You see, there he goes again. This makes no sense. He just shitted on everybody else. He just said, if you look at a Native American, they're not yellow skin, because he's trying to undermine the fact that they're from Asia. But didn't Recorder Rashidi and Anthony Brower say, and Tariq Nasheed saying that all these Asians is dark skin? Or is it just me? Am I wrong, Vaughn?
No.
So somebody's lying on the same documentary. They're saying, look at all these black people that are Asian. Look at all these black people. But when they get to the Bering Strait, they're not black no more. Like I don't get it. Even though they're phenotypically black, but they're gonna put their foot in their mouth some more, because none of this is making any sense.
All over the country of Costa Rica, you have these little African-like statues just all over the place. And when you go to the museums, you see these African artifacts, African-style gold, a lot of monuments and artifacts that resemble monuments and artifacts from West Africa.
You have one.
So, you know what? I'm going to let it play, man.
One way, the other part goes the other way.
Nah, because it's just frustrating, man. It's mad frustrating.
How you think I felt 11 years ago?
Because no. All right, let me let it play, man. Let me shut up.
Of that split, you have a place that Native Americans call Cahokia. Today it's called Collinsville, Illinois. It's near St. Louis. This is where you have the largest pyramid in the Northern Hemisphere. It's called Monk's Mound.
Dr. Kaba, I love you, but you're a hypocrite. If it's a pyramid, why is it called a mound? A mound and a pyramid aren't two of the same things. They're two completely different things. That's why one's called a mound and the other one's called a pyramid. Again, trying to... Come on, man. It's a mound. It's a mound. It's not a pyramid. You said... That's more similar to the quote-unquote pyramid that you'll find in Yucatan Peninsula that the Mayans and the Incas would use. How is that similar to... There's no grass. There's no grass. Show me grass on a pyramid in Africa. Is there grass growing? Is there steps on there? There's something called a step pyramid in Africa, in Gaza, but that was when they were trying, when they first started building the pyramids. And you could see the evolution in the pyramid, where you had the bent pyramid, you had the step pyramid, and those were the first pyramids until you have the monumental huge pyramid that has perfect alignment, and everything is just perfect as far as the size, and everything is geometrically everything's just geometrically working out. That's what it is. This is not a goddamn pyramid. But I broke my promise saying I wouldn't say nothing, but I just couldn't help it.
If you look at pictures from the 1900s and beyond, most of the Native American people were very dark skinned. Sometimes they were very jet black, but most Native American people before 1900, if you look at photos of them, they're extremely dark skinned people, especially on the West.
Wait. But Dr. Claude Anderson said they weren't dark skinned. They were like Asian, and we've been here. You know what? Fuck. This is crazy.
It's so crazy. Yeah, because you have three different people making three different arguments about the. If they're confused on what black is on this documentary, where do they leave everyone else to be confused? To be confused also.
Yeah, I'm about to because I don't want to get like flagged for it, so I don't want to play too much. That's why I don't mind the interruptions or whatever. But hopefully I don't get flagged for it. But yeah, it's almost done. What I'm about to play. I'm not playing too much after this.
The California Indians were very dark skinned. The Indians that were around the Minnesota, Milwaukee area that we know as Milwaukee and Minnesota now, they were very dark skinned people. The Native Americans on the East Coast were very dark skinned people. In the late 1800s, there was something called the Dawes Rolls, which was basically a census that made records of people's ethnic backgrounds in order to determine which Native American tribes would get certain land allotments and other benefits. After slavery, many black people were associated with some of these tribes by bloodline, through marriage, through adoption, and even service.
Wait. I thought y'all were the Native Americans, so why is there being distinctions? Vaughn, can you help me out here? I don't know what's going on, man. I'm lost.
If you don't know, I know. Because
didn't just say we were the Native Americans.
They're making so many arguments. Tariq Nasheed alone makes so many arguments on the Native American thing in here. And this is the guy that's basically saying that went from saying, oh, all of these dark-skinned people are related and they're the same thing, to now African Americans are something completely different. So it shows the evolution of his idea on how he viewed blackness, right? How it has changed over the last 10 years. And he acts as if how he viewed what he calls black has always been the same, and it hasn't. We can see it here. We can see it here that he see black as this all-encompassing thing that covers everyone. Now he's saying the only people that are black are African Americans. This guy's a hypocrite, and we have video evidence of this guy being a hypocrite.
He's doing it all for money. I'm about to finish playing the last couple seconds to this, but guys, remember this picture right here. You can see an absolute distinction phenotypically as far as like bone structure of an African American and a Native American. But according to Dr. Claude, you know what? I can't do it, man. I'm trying not to curse, man. I'm trying not to curse it, because my son's around, and I'm trying to be a good example, right, Manny?
Yeah. and I love Dr. Claude. Listen, the stuff that he wrote on economics is I find to be awesome, but Claude, you dropped the ball with this one, and you kind of kicked it down the hill, and
yeah.
They were associated with these tribes. Many black people were entitled to some of these benefits. The government did not want blacks to get these benefits, so they created a separate freedmen's list specifically for black people. They also started to list any full-blooded Native American who had African features as black, because they didn't want them getting those benefits either. At the same time, they allowed white citizens to come in and pay money under the table to be listed as part Native American.
1895.
Yeah, so that's pretty much going to talk about the $5.
So your man said Native American with African features.
Yeah, what's that?
Why would why would the Native Americans have African features if you've been here? You're not you've been here. You mean native black features? I
And
don't get it.
this is my thing. And you know, our brother did so. He's from Latin America. He knows a lot of Latin American history. But according to Dr. Claude Anderson, that so this if what you're saying is true, I like to put people's actual claim and have it work out in real life. So you're saying all the black people that look like us are no longer, why are we not on reservations? Why is there not one reservation, right, full of black people? You have to show me a history where they went into the so-called wilderness, took black people that are Native Americans, put them to work on plantations, kicked them off of their reservations, off their land, and when they were giving them land, they said, okay, we're going to take all the real Native Americans or the black people and replace them with the fake ones. No one has shown me that history yet. No one has shown me that history yet. I mean, we're pretty much coming to it, and I just have a couple points to make, and I'm gonna put the link in the chat soon, so you guys, we can bring people in. These are
Because
my points.
this black business network guy said, "I'm out. It's getting late, and it's taking too long for the link to ask some questions."
All right, brother Bakari. All right, just for brother Bakari, if you're still there, this link right now is only for our brother Bakari. But brother Bakari, you know what I'm saying? You my brother no matter what. You know what I'm saying? We ride or die no matter what. So the link is in the chat. Only brother Bakari right now respond to the link in the chat. But I'm gonna make my points while brother Bakari is trying to come in. So they will have to show me that history, which no one has shown. They just say, "Oh, we've been here." Right? And these people that we call Native American, they're fake, right?
They're Mongols. They're Mongols.
Yeah, and how did the Mongols get here? According to Dr. Claude Anderson, fine, they came through the Bering Strait. So if they came through the Bering Strait and you already here, how did you get here? Right? Hold on, our brother Bakari's on right now. What's up, brother Bakari? What's up?
What's up, man? Yeah, I'm good. How about you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good.
Now I'm listening to y'all, right? And I hear y'all beating up Hidden Colors, which I know Hidden Colors was absolutely pseudo. But I heard y'all say something about scientific method, but having no one use scientific method. So now y'all say you look at the Jawara people because y'all say don't go by first. Y'all say you can't go by phenotype. But then I heard both of y'all say when they showed the picture of the Native Americans with the little black kids, both of y'all said, well, you can look at the phenotype and see the difference. See, you can't see because I'm gonna listen to everything. So y'all can't say in one breath, don't use phenotypes, then y'all want to turn and use phenotypes. Now, the reason
hold on, let me explain why I said
No,
that.
let him get it out. Let him get it out. Go ahead, brother.
No, because that's being hypocritical. If you say you can't look at the Jawara people and say look at their phenotype and say they're us, you can't turn and say, well, look at the phenotype of the Native American and the black until that they are different. You can't do that. You cannot do that. And there ain't no people on earth. And there ain't no people on earth walking around saying you gonna be J and I'm gonna be L. We are not the same. Only now there's a lot of black people on social media doing this, and we fight hard to show that we are different than other black people. And I just want to know, why is that so important to black people to show that I'm different than other black people? Because one thing, when Donald Trump was the president the first time, one thing I give him credit for, he's not a Viking, but he did say he would like to see not good people from Norway and Sweden and places like that come to America. They won't be considered the same folks. Norway would be Viking. He from Western Europe. They wouldn't be considered the same people. So I'm just want to know, why do we do that?
Well,
All right, so now let me tackle this, right? So the Vikings, the people from Norway, and
He breaking up. I don't know if that's me or y'all, but
Vaughn,
he's
you
breaking up.
breaking up, or I don't know what
no,
happened.
what I'm saying is this: with the Vikings and the other different type of people in Europe, you can prove that they're of current European ancestry, right? So it's not it's not the same. That's one.
But that
And
don't
to
make them the
tackle,
same because they're both from Europe. Won't make them the same because according to y'all, you're gonna have to go by genetic and all that. That won't make them the same though.
no, but
Being
genetically, when you go,
being
no, but genetically, so but
like
genetically, when you go down into their genetics, they're not going to be of a different race. They're going to be of a different ethnic group, not a different race
so.
altogether,
So
right?
are you telling me the Jawara people is a different race than you? Is
Hold
that
on.
what you're
yes,
Hold
yes.
on. Let me tap in. This is what it confused me.
man?
No,
That
no,
shit is
brother
crazy
Ricard.
as hell.
No. Hold on. This is what has
No,
happened. One, you kind of missed it. He said we were being hypocritical. We needed to expound on what we were saying. When we were talking about the Jarara people, and we said we could judge them by because their phenotype is the same. What we mean by phenotype, we're not talking about skin color. The phenotype of someone that you would say that's from Asia, someone that's from China, Taiwan, Taipei, Indonesia. When we said phenotype, that's what we were talking about. That's what we meant. So when we talk about the Jarawa people, right? When we say phenotype, that's what we're talking about. They have a so-called Asian phenotype, even
No,
though
they
they
don't.
are dark skinned. That's how
They
you
don't
could
look.
tell. So if you put an
They look
African,
nothing like Asians. They look nothing. I'm gonna ask you, have you ever met a black Asian? Seriously, have you ever literally met one? I'm gonna find the picture of me and my friend Okidoki together. He's from Thailand and he had locks. So if you ever talk to these people themselves, this is actually my friend. And I wish my son was here because I introduced you to my son, my family, and they would tell you when he discussed his history, they would tell you their history teaches that they come from Africa long time ago. And when we talk, the same thing that they said on, I don't even like Hidden Colors at all, but the same thing they said about being in the mountains, that's what he tell you his people is from in Thailand, is from the mountains. And he said they had been in the mountains, isolated for a very long time, for over 1,000 years. And he got into it telling me why they were in the mountains isolated, because a war came and they were attacking people there who was ever attacking, and it was only a small group. Now this is how he said it: there were only a small group of Africans there, and in order for them to survive, they had to go up in the mountains.
and how did those Africans get there? How long did it take them to get there?
I don't know how long it took them to get there.
that's the
That,
crux of the
but that's
question.
but see, that's the problem, right?
I didn't
And
ask them that.
yeah, but that's so even if it's a part of his history, even if it's something that he believes, it doesn't make it true, right? If you want to say there was some dark skinned people in that area that went up in the mounts and it was up there for 1,000 years, you can say that, right? But what you have to track is how long did it take the people to get from Africa to get over there? If it's 10,000 years, if it's 20,000 years, if it's 30,000 years, even though physically they might look like us, genetically they're not us. They're no
Okay, good. I
longer
got you.
us.
I got you. So watch this then, right? So how long does it take for a black person? Because eventually, if y'all don't marry, if nobody in your family ever marry nobody from the continent, ever, and have kids with them. So that means eventually everyone in the diaspora, eventually, I don't know how long it take for your DNA to evolve. So I'm asking. So that means eventually we won't be African anymore, right?
Um,
We're not migrating
Eventually.
to, no.
So
My
don't your DNA evolve? Your DNA evolves, right? That's really the first thing that evolves. So when you find the black people who genetics and their DNA is different now, it evolved to the area where they are, right? So that's
yeah.
why when you talk about the Jawara people, it would be more, it's going to be closely Asian because they have been there so long. So the question that
No. It's going to be Asian because they have descended from Asian ancestors.
no,
What you mean?
because it evolved. Because your
Yes.
DNA is the first thing that evolved. It's not because
Yes.
they necessarily descended from Asian people. It's
No,
because of the area that they're in and the DNA evolved.
wait. So, Brother Bakari, what you're telling me is that these African people left East Africa, maintained their same genetic code for thousands of years, 50 to 40,000 years,
I don't
and
know how
then when
long
they
they
got
kept
to
it.
when they got to where they were, then their genetics change. If
What
it
I
changed
said
at
was,
all.
I don't know. I don't know how long. I don't know how
But this
long.
is why we're doing this, because that's the misnomer, and that's the gap. People think that
But you
the
have to.
same
So let me
that
ask
the
you, since
same
we're using
African that left
science,
East Africa, these people are genetically the same, a direct descendant from a continental African, and that's simply not true.
so eventually we will stop being African too. Eventually, right?
No,
Because like
No,
yes,
because we're not migrating. We're
you
not
did
migrating
migrate.
to.
You migrated. It was forced migration, but you did migrate. You migrated from
Yes,
Africa to
but
wherever you're from through force.
yes, right. But we're not migrating through different continents. We're not migrating and splitting off and becoming different groups through different continents over the
And enough
course
time
of
has
tens
not
of
passed.
thousands of years. Enough
Exactly,
time has
enough
not
time
passed.
has not
As of,
passed.
if 50,000 years ago, if let's say 50,000 years ago, whatever it is, and we're moving through different continents, then yeah, then it would be changed. But we're here in one place. There is no need to become different people altogether to survive, to pass genes on. So there is not going to be any change. There is no need for it. There is
Okay,
no
I got
need
And
you.
for
also,
it.
you have to understand, Brother Bakari, we're talking about when if you, I don't know if you were here at the beginning, we're talking about groups, right? When we talk about groups, so there's only Africa has several genetic groups, only 3 groups left. So we talking about just 3 groups that migrated, right? You cannot use that analogy to us because we're West Africans and we consist of many genetic many
So
genetic
with
groups
all us
within
being
us. So
saying,
we're not gonna go through a crazy change like that because because we have more genetic diversity than those Asians,
so let
right?
me ask you. So would we all be the same?
West
Because
Africans, yes, because we're West African. We're directly descended from
but
West
but
Africans
they would tell, but all West
that were pretty
Africans would
much.
tell you.
Hold on. I'm answering.
I'm saying,
We're
but they would
West.
tell you they're not the same. All
We're
West Africans would tell you they're not the same.
if they're not coming from. It depends. Are they talking about cultural or they talking about genetics? If they want to talk about we're not the same culturally, that's a conversation. If they want to say we're not the same when it comes to genetically, they'll be mostly be wrong because then we gotta talk about admixture. We gotta talk about on history and the reason why there is admixture. Me, I did my DNA test. I'm 98% African. I'm 1% Native American and 1% Irish. Right. So that's where we have to talk about. We're talking about groups of Africans here, so it's not the same.
Okay,
I'm
I'm just
Cameroonian,
I
Nigerian, Ghanaian, I'm from the Congo. There's more genetic diversity in me than the branches that left
I,
Africa. So you
I
can't
got you.
use that analogy.
Oh, okay, I got you. So because I'm just asking questions because I don't know nothing about no science. I do know I have studied the Africa out of Africa's theory some, and I can tell y'all don't believe in the out of Africa theory. I can really tell that. So the out of
What makes you
Africa
say that?
We
scientific
just
theory.
proved that. We just proved the
No,
out of Africa
but
theory.
but what? Okay, so this is what I'm gonna ask. I'm just asking. So like people from Angola and people from Nigeria, I'm saying would they be considered the same?
No, I think
So okay,
they may
so
have a
watch this thing.
different genetic marker.
Okay, so watch this. So like our homeboy who come on sometime, he's from his ancestors, he just saying majority from Angola, Guy in Hollywood Jr. Majority from Angola. And I forget what else, but it had nothing like Nigeria or Ghana or none of that, according to him, in his DNA, right? So now, would y'all be the same people? He won't be Cameroonian. He's not Igbo. He's not Yoruba. He's none of that. So how would you and him be considered the same people then?
Because we're both
he's
sub-Saharan African.
exactly they're continental
Substance.
Africans. So they're
So
continental Africans. So let's say, for argument's sake, that you have 20 groups of continental Africans. You have 20 genetic markers of continental Africans.
I'm just asking because I want to know. Go ahead.
It doesn't matter how you put them together. They're all continental Africans out the 20. No matter if you mix genetic marker number 10 with genetic marker number 19 with genetic marker, they're all continental Africans, no matter how you put it together. But
what about the Lumba tribe?
The Lumba tribe. I'm not a library of continent.
I'm just asking.
I know.
Are continental African, but genetically they would be because we going by genetic. Now you look at them, we gonna say they're continental African. Now I have realized black people, we gonna ask one another about genetics. So genetically, they are more closely related to Europeans than they are to other continental Africans. So, but they are Lumba tribe. Then some. I say Europeans because I'm talking about the Jews. I call all of them the same. That's what they'll be more close. If you look and study, that's when they did their DNA. They're more closely related to them than they are other continental Africa.
Okay, I'll take your word for it. I have not studied them, so I can't say. But
Yeah,
so what I'm saying is so what I'm saying is because they are continental Africans, y'all would be the same.
If their genetic marker is a continental African and their genetic marker is a genuine continental African, then yes. But if you want to talk about like North Africans and stuff like that, depending on the time period, I have to study the people's history. That also plays a part. But let me let.
I just want to ask some questions before I go to bed and mess with y'all because now I am trolling with some of my questions because me and Kobe cool.
No, but you hit an interesting question.
Hold on. Ditto. 2 minutes because I'm not supposed to let people in because I told y'all this is only for Brother Bakari. I want to get through my thing.
Thank you, Kofi. Thank you, man. Because I'm finna go to bed because I had to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, man.
I got you.
Me too, brother Bakari. Listen, we gonna have you on next time.
No, I enjoyed it, man. I just wanted to ask some questions, man. That's just who I am. I like to ask questions to know how people come up with what they come up with. I'm not trying to prove you wrong. I just like to ask questions to know. If I don't ask questions, I won't know.
Now I like people trying to prove me wrong. That makes me.
But I'm really not trying to prove. I'm really not trying to prove you wrong. I speak like I'm debating. No, I speak like I'm debating at all times because I'm the youngest of 9, and I had to speak like that to be heard. So it sounds like I'm debating most of the time when I talk, but I'm really not. That's just how I speak.
Yeah. All right, Brother Bakari. Thanks for coming through.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Hold on 1 second. Did so. Make it literally. You like me? I know. You go on.
Yeah. No,
make
but
it
I'm gonna
2-3 minutes, and then we're gonna let Neru go. I just hold on for a second, Neru.
It's simple. The question of the identity of African Americans in the Western Hemisphere has to be viewed through the lenses of the last 500 and some odd years of history, when and particularly in the context of the Atlantic slave trade and what that developed and how that impacted towards the population that was already here prior to the arrival of the Europeans and during the arrival of the Europeans, etc. So that context, you can't say the descendants of African slavery that have been born here in the last 500 years are the same as those people who remained in Western Africa or who are in Eastern Africa. There are elements of ethnicity as well as of admixture, but we also have to recognize that within here, monoparental, meaning two parents that were either slaves at that moment or descendants of slaves, mom and dad, also happened. But there were grades of admixture happening. So the confusion that is happening within Vakari is the same confusion that we see on the pseudos. They do not understand the clear distinction that we have to make in regards of what is the Western Hemisphere, its history, its incorporation of because of Western of the Atlantic slave trade versus the other areas. So the terminations, the categorizations utilized like black to then define pre-European populations is completely and utterly absurd. That's all I wanted to say.
All right. Yeah, I agree. This I totally agree. Nibiru, what's up? You can go. What's up? Thanks for joining.
Hello. And so I hear a lot of misconceptions about genetics and stuff like that. So when it comes to like haplogroups, right? Your Y DNA is passed from father to the son, mTNA mother to children. And your autosomal DNA is going to give you like breakdowns and stuff like that. And all that tells you, it doesn't tell you your race, but it tells you where those genes mutated. So it's more you can use this more as a geographical thing than a racial thing. If you're trying to figure out what what like phenotype these people were, you're gonna have to look at their actual remains. So say for example, uh, if you were to look at the remains of Aborigines, Negritos, Southern Indians, um, Melanesians, they will cluster with Africans. And now there's this other caveat where if you understand uh, if you understand genetics, right, you'll see certain splits, so common ancestor, right? So the last time someone from East or West Africa had a common ancestor with someone from like the Khoisan people would have been 200,000 years ago. That's a long time. But if
Hmm.
you were to compare that to the ancestors of East and West Africans and Eurasians, now it's like 100,000 to 70,000 years ago. So ironically, right, those latter groups of Africans that I mentioned are more related to Eurasians than they are to say Khoisan Pygmies or Hadzabe peoples.
Well,
You get what I mean?
you kind of lost me. Okay, so you're saying this is where you lost me. You're saying people from Malaysia, and the people, Jarawa people, and Papua New Guinea people. You said they're from Africa, and they're not.
No, it sounds like what he's
That's
saying is like
that's not what
when
I'm
you
saying.
compare, what you're saying is when you compare the Sand Bushmen to other groups of Africans, right, in Africa, the last time they share a common ancestor is like 200,000 years ago versus the last time some of the people outside of Africa would have shared an ancestor with other Africans would have been like 70,000 years ago. So more or less he's saying that even within the African continent, there are gaps between Africans sharing a common ancestor of 130,000 years ago versus people that outside of Africa what might be 70,000 or 60,000 years ago. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, more or less. So the biggest
Yeah,
splits
but
in
I'm not disagreeing with that. But just because you have someone that's further removed from Africa, that say that then let's say 30,000 years ago versus someone in Africa that has a distance of, let's say, like 90 to 100,000 years ago, that doesn't make the person in Asia more African. They still their line still
that's not
comes
that's not
from.
that's not my argument at all. All
Oh,
right.
okay.
So get this in your head that Africa is just a tectonic plate, right? We're all held into this like spiritual thing of like, Africa this, Africa that. Uh, we call Africa the we call that tectonic plate Africa. I just hope you understand that. So the point I'm trying to make is that those guys who left Africa 70,000 years ago, right? Those guys will still be genetically more related to someone from Western Africa and Eastern Africa than say like the Khoi people, or rather should I say the East and Western Africans, right? Are more related to the the Eurasians, right?
than
let
the
me
actual
ask you a
white people.
question.
So it's yeah.
So are you saying that someone who left Africa recently that settled in India,
Mm.
do you still consider them African, or there's something else? Or okay, who will have a closer genetic relationship? Someone who settled in India or someone who settled in Indonesia?
Right. So if you're so let's give an example of a Nigerian immigrant who's gone to let's say like the Philippines, right? And he just settles there, right? And brings his Nigerian family over, right? And they just settle there. Well, that Nigerian is still going to be because it's still going to be what you call uh more related to Nigerians back home than he is going to be the local population there because he's going to
Agreed.
be a foreigner there.
Agreed.
That's not really a good
Mhm.
example.
Yeah.
But on the other
But
hand,
that's not what I'm. I'm trying to get your frame of reference as far as time wise, because the model I'm using is a scientific model of human migration. So we
So,
understand how human.
not
So
to cut you, Roderick, but I want to
yeah,
say this, right? Even if the sand bushman, the difference between a sand bushman and another African in the area, even if they shared a common ancestor that goes back 200,000 years ago, you have one group of African breaking off to become another group of African, right? Those people genetically are more of the same than someone that's outside of Africa that is 70,000 years removed.
that's
They're
false.
more
But
no,
That's
they're
actually
more closely. But
that's actually false because we can the whole reason why people go to Africa and do these studies is they can actually test vaccines on them. So they can test like very specific people to get very specific results and stuff like that. Africa is the most genetically diverse
yeah,
continent
we
that
know
is the
that.
origin of
Yeah, we know
humanity.
that.
Oh,
Yes,
and
we
also
know that.
another thing is that the people who left uh, Africa 70,000 years ago, it was like what 50 to 50,000, so 5,000 to 50,000 people. So those guys were just uh, part of the African gene pool that just moved elsewhere. That's it.
so so I
we're
just
not
want to.
disagreeing. We're not disagreeing with that. But what we're trying to drive home is that once those people left and it reached places like like Philippines and Indonesia, they are not genetically the same.
Okay,
Period.
so
You can make the same argument. You can make the same. All right. So the
But hold on,
findings.
but you
Yeah.
cannot use Africa as an example
But
because we already know and
I
established that.
actually
it's not the same.
I actually
It's
could
not.
I
Yeah,
actually
so it's yeah, but it's not the same when you're well, it's not the same as comparing sub-Saharan Africans, right? So obviously, sub-Saharan Africans are breaking off from each other and becoming their own distinct ethnic group, but they're still sub-Saharan African, right?
these
Exactly.
all
so
right, all
They-
right. These
There's
groups have
hold on, Nato.
these
Can I
the
intervene for one quick second? I just want to grab on what you're saying and just say this. I'm going to give it with example of the Western Hemisphere. We're all aware of the Clovis people, right? As the uh, as the view of the first Homo sapiens sapiens that had undergone the change from nomad hunter gatherer to a more settling pseudo civilization or primary civilization type of organizations that we saw. However, something that people don't talk is in regards of the breakage that started happening once the Clovis people started entering what is today the modern day Mesoamerica or the Central American. I may use a term that is not often used, but the uh, Central American isthmus. So that humongous isthmus that started with Mexico down to Panama. That breakage, then we see, for example, on the Caral people, on Peru, a uh, after a couple thousand years, a variation of that. However, with this example, I just want to make clear we cannot see the expansion of Homo sapiens sapiens as a hegemonic, as a one thing or one lineal thing. it cannot be seen that way, because the forms of migration and the separation from different groups. The same thing happens with the Bantu people in Africa. We use the
But
term
this,
Bantu.
I'm gonna have to cut you off only
This is a whole
because
different topic.
because
Yeah.
when we played Hidden Colors, I don't know if you agree with this or not. Dr. Claude Anderson said that the bones of the Folsom people were African. That's what he said, were African, and then through the Bering Straits, the people that we call Native Americans today, they came later on and intermingled with those Africans. So is that what you're saying? Or do you agree
No,
with
no,
that?
no,
Do you
no, no,
agree with
no,
that?
no, no, no.
Okay.
Okay. Let's clear this out. Claude Anderson is utterly and completely wrong on his categorization in regards of the Folsom site or the Wild Horse Arroyo in New Mexico. What I am saying cannot be confused into that, because what I'm saying is we can recognize that throughout the different processes of migration, and I'm going to focus here on the Western Hemisphere because it's my expertise. I'm from here. This is what I have studied. Even though I brought up the conversation of the Bantu, but right now I just want to focus on that.
Yeah, again, guys, like I don't want to I really want to make my points because I'm kind of doing the cart before the horse. I kind of want to make my points first, then have the conversation, but this always happens when I let people in. Let me just, I mean, you guys can hang back for a little bit. I just want to make some quick points. Vaughn, I don't know if you had, because I know you had some notes that you want to do. We're at the 2-hour mark. You know me, I don't want to draw it all out. I want it to be very digestible for people who's going to look at it
No,
during the recording.
we covered I think we covered a lot of things, so life itself started in East Africa, and then people spread out throughout Africa, becoming their own distinct ethnic group, right, over time. So obviously there are going to be big gaps in last previous common ancestor, because they can, all the skeleton remains show that life itself, especially dealing with modern humans itself, started in East Africa, and then people spread out to
Oh,
become their own people within the
you said East
continent.
Africa?
Yeah, that's what
Yeah.
it points
So
to.
the latest research is now Morocco, Jebel Irhoud from Morocco. He also has the earliest human haplotype as well. So even
And
over
how old
20%.
and how old is that?
Yeah, it's three 350,000. The Omo
Modern
Valley
human.
are, yeah.
Modern human, 50,000 years old. That's recent. Modern human, Homo sapiens
No,
sapien,
no,
we're talking like
three,
200,000 years old.
no, let me repeat again. 350,000.
So
350,000.
Can you post that, or can you post that article, because that's total news to me, where modern
yeah,
human is in Morocco out of all places.
yeah, it to me it doesn't make any sense. But I
It
think
doesn't.
this is one of those things. This is one of those things where they try to place, civilization or mankind coming out of somewhere that's not considered sub-Sahara. They tend
Exactly.
to try to play this game, and it always falls on its head. It's like, even like sometime when they say, "Oh, we found skeleton remains here in Europe," that debunks the whole out
Yeah,
of Africa theory,
that
only to
that
find
was
out that
Piltdown Man.
it's absolute nonsense. But
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure that the life itself started in East Africa is so solidified that it's highly unlikely that they're gonna find Homo sapien 350,000 years
You're gonna
ago
say
in
that.
Morocco.
You're gonna say that, but why
No,
don't like
I
you're
have
gonna
no
okay.
problem
No,
being
well,
wrong,
hold on,
but
guys. Stop.
I'll look into
Like
it.
this should not be a debate. Naru, can you please post the article, because you're telling us information that we don't know about. If you
sure?
can, please find that article, post the article, and then we can discuss the article instead of just going back and forth. Right.
No problem, sir.
Cam Diverse is in the house. Thank you for being here. Buana, thank you for sticking around. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, Vaughn, we did cover a lot. One of the things I want to cover about specifically about because remember, we were talking about when they say, "Oh, we were been here already," because the Europeans say they saw dark-skinned people. What you and I talk about this for, what they're trying to say is that the European at that time couldn't differentiate between a Native American or an African. And we knew they could distinguish between a Native American and an African, right? We already knew that. So when they say, oh, if you read what Columbus said, and all Columbus saying dark skin, saying copper colored people, he's describing how they look. He's not saying, oh, we found a second Africa. He did not call them African at all, right? He called the Native Americans. Another point I want to do to make debunks the whole thing on its face. So we all know during this time when the Europeans came to North America, right? Like most places that Europeans go, they're full of diseases and they just wipe out the native populations, right? One of the reasons why they got black Africans from Africa, from the Gold Coast, from West Africa, is because they knew the crops that they knew the crops that Europeans wanted them to grow, one, and they were resistant from their diseases. We all know that the Native Americans' first chemical germ warfare was what? They gave the Native Americans blankets because they had no immunity. So if you're black, aka Native American, you're not those people. You're not obviously African, but you're African. So these people cannot really look like you or be you if genetically they cannot have such a resistance against smallpox. So that's a dagger already. As far as like the black people and the Native American are really the same people, but then the white man's trying to trick us. That's nonsense, right?
Yo, please, yeah, bro, please send that article. I'm printing that out tomorrow and reading it. I want to. No. I really want to read it because I feel like every few years, I think Neil deGrasse Tyson brought this up. Like every few years, try this, just never works. It just every few years. Like I've got into arguments with people maybe a month and a half ago. Oh, we found skeleton remains here, and I'm like, yo, bro, they've been trying that exact thing to try to separate mankind starting in sub-Saharan Africa. They've been trying that thing for like 40 years, and every time they do it,
longer than that, bro. Since the 1900s, the 1900s, have been trying to.
Can I just say something towards that? Okay. So the reconstruction that they made of this looks like just an African. They're not making it.
No, bro, you got to give us the article, man.
Yeah, I posted the article in the actual chat.
Right, let me leave you.
Please.
But you can search up there's.
So what they're saying. So let me get this. So what they're saying is that life itself actually started in Morocco.
It's in a private. I'm sorry, Vaughn, to cut you off. It's in a private chat. So everybody else, they can't see it. If you put it in the private chat, you can private chat.
Get it to me. I'll print it out. So, but basically, what they're saying is that I want to see how this would line up with everything else. So it would have started in Morocco, and what they went down into Africa from the north down into the rest of Africa and populated it. Is that what they're saying?
Yeah, pretty much that. Yeah.
Wow, that's like saying the Nile runs backwards, man.
Yeah, because
that makes no sense.
It does because I tell you why. Because you need to understand.
Like, hold on. Yeah, you cut off a little bit, but before you go, let me play this real quick.
Some thoughts here.
Okay,
There's a section here on race and color, which is another thing with the variation of what we have in the world. Just a point I want to make. When European anthropologists started running through Africa and started describing what they saw, their urge was to say, everyone in Africa is this thing, and they have dark skin, woolly hair, and that is a thing. And they called it a race, and they called it the Negroes, okay? And this is our attempt to classify into few categories something that might actually, in real life, be on a spectrum. We know that the human species began in Africa. And everybody who populates everywhere else in the world came out of Africa to do that. What that tells you is that the genetic diversity within Africa as the origin of our species is greater than it is between any other two people anywhere else in the world. But because the anthropologists were not thinking genetic diversity, they're thinking skin color. They put them all in one bin. But if you have the most genetic diversity, then in practically every way humans vary, you would find the extreme of that in the African continent.
Mm-hmm.
Where would you find the tallest people in the world? Watusi tribe of Africa. How about the shortest people in the world?
Pygmies.
The Pygmies. Not even that far away.
Right.
Geographically. They have the same skin color, so the Europeans said these are one group of people, one race. Where might you find the slowest people in the world? Well, no one looks for them. Where would you find? There's no races to find the slowest people. How about the fastest people? Africa. Okay. People of African descent have dominated the long distance as well as the sprint, two completely different physical abilities. Oh, but they're all dark-skinned people. They're all Negroes. Okay. Where would you likely find the dumbest person in the world? Africa. How about the smartest person in the world? Africa.
How about the Egyptians?
The
From
Europeans did not look for people smarter than they were. Okay. And to this day, where they find evidence where that might have been the case, you have people saying aliens did it. Egypt is, of course, in Africa.
Yeah.
A brilliant civilization. Oh my gosh. While Europeans were still either disemboweling heretics or whatever the hell they were doing, I was even before that, thousands of years ago. So my point is, if you don't look for it and you don't find it and you're going to create a map of humans of the world, you're going to put yourself at the top. That's what you're going to do. And you're going to write things like this. Who do you want to hear from? Thomas Jefferson or Francis Galton?
Jefferson.
Jefferson, 1785. Speaking of the Negroes, comparing them by their faculties of memory, reason, and imagination, it appears to me that in memory, they are equal to the whites. In reason, much inferior, as I think one could scarcely be found capable of tracing and comprehending the investigations of Euclid. And in imagination, they are dull, tasteless, and anomalous.
What is Euclid?
I honestly don't know how many Euclid-fluent white people Jefferson knew in the original American colonies. Euclid invented geometry. Okay, Euclidean geometry is ancient Greece. And his books still exist to this day. So he's saying the black slaves don't know Euclid, can't figure out Euclid.
Well, they haven't been educated.
Well, regardless,
The whole
how
thing is so
many
ridiculous.
white farmers in 1785 USA
Also,
knew Euclid?
Yeah,
No.
zero.
Okay. Okay. But suppose anthropologist is white, so he's got to put white people at the top. Then I thought, suppose anthropologists were black racists instead of white racists. What would they write? What would they come up with?
well, also what he's saying is ridiculous because if it's kindergarten, how did they do the pyramids? It's the most complex structures ever known to man.
Hold on. So
But we can't reproduce today.
no, it's,
All of it's ridiculous.
my only point is when you have that mindset and you have to put yourself at the top and all people with dark skin are one entity, you're not looking for people smarter than you. You're not. There's other evidence here. Do you realize that the people who get the highest scores on standardized tests in England are people, immigrants from the Igbo tribe in Nigeria? And these are their kids.
Yeah, some of y'all not gonna like that. some Africans are not gonna like that. But yeah, so I just wanted to play that. I mean, Vaughn, you're gonna read the article real quick if you can.
No,
Or
not
you
right
gonna
now.
do that? I don't know what you're gonna do.
I'm gonna read it on my own. I'm gonna read it up. I want to do a part 2 to this because this was really fun, bro. I got to be up at like 4 o'clock for work in the morning, so we
Yeah.
have to do a part 2 to this. I want to read that article. I want to see how it lines up. I'm gonna. I think for the next one, I want to pull up some academic papers and stuff like that. Go over it, highlight, make some notes, put it in the chat. Yeah, but this was really good, man. That neuro guy, that guy that in the article, right?
Yeah, Nerus, he's still here.
Yeah, so I'm gonna check it out. I'm gonna check it out, and let's do a part 2 to this, man.
Yeah, we
What
can
you want
do a part 2. Yeah, we can do a part 2. Yeah, let's try to do it. Yeah, at another
to?
time, at an earlier time because people clocking out. So we could do it like on a Friday or a Saturday. Or well, I can't do Saturday because we do our own Bit of Medicine podcast. But we could do it like on a Friday, or say earlier on a Sunday. That would be good. But
Yeah.
let me welcome real quick Cam Javerse. What's up, bro? What's up?
Yo, what's up? I just wanted to come on when I heard Jibble Arud. Jibble Arud in Morocco is an archaic human. It's not the same species as us because we're Homo sapiens sapien. That's like a early Homo sapien.
Ah.
Okay,
It's
because
been
I didn't read the article
reclassified
yet.
though. Yeah.
Yeah, you have evidence of like early Homo sapien mandibles or jaw in ancient so-called Israel or West Asia like 200,000 years ago. Right? So like you have really, really old specimens of Homo sapiens or early variants of Homo sapiens outside
Yeah.
of the continent. But that doesn't mean that they didn't come from inner Africa.
Exactly. Exactly. And
So,
that's what I was trying to get like a
so more or less,
timeline.
so more or less, it's like the different. So Homo erectus would have become different homonyms, and those are the ones that they're finding, and they're trying to label them like Homo sapien. They're not fully
No,
developed, man. Like,
it's not like
it-
it's a lot more complicated than that. So let me explain. So with all humans today are Homo sapiens sapiens, a subspecies
yeah.
of the extinct Homo sapiens. So,
Mm-hmm.
and what people don't know is that there were other subspecies of Homo sapiens. We were not the only ones
Yeah.
around. And so what Dribble Ears is showing is just like basically uh early Homo sapiens. So
No,
the
it's Homo
initial
sapien, not
the
sapien
the
sapien.
initial scholars were refraining to actually label it Homo sapiens because the actual crania and the reconstruction of that is obviously of a of a uh, of a black person,
Yeah.
right?
So
It's
wait,
not
so
a
you
white person.
saying
So
so were you saying in Morocco that was the first modern human, or what you find in Morocco is a
That's,
subgroup of that modern human?
yeah, that's not a
And
modern
so
human.
yeah, so if you actually do read the study, they're saying that like it's archaic and stuff like that, but that's just a bias on the scholars. Like
What evidence do you have that it's a modern human?
they're they're struggling to find it very hard that the first people in those regions are no different from like other black groups.
But
So
what
that's why
evidence do you have that it's a modern human though?
and I posted the studies in the chat and the guys they're
It's
gonna
in
look into it.
Cam Verse. It's in the
Oh,
private
okay.
chat.
What I'm
I
saying
know,
is
but
this.
that study doesn't show
So
that it's
he
a
hit.
modern human. That's what I'm saying.
So he hit an interesting point. Is the remains of a Homo sapien? If it's not, then
It's
it's an
not.
archaic human.
It's obviously not. Like it's pre-Atarian and pre-Ibero-Maurutian, which is the Pleistocene. That's like pre 11,000 years ago. It's like middle Pleistocene at best. That's not a modern human.
Ah,
okay,
because
You're
so
saying it's
three.
not an
if I
modern
may
human.
drop in there real quickly, I just want to make the following suggestion, and I put certain links on the back chat right there, especially the science.org, which is a pretty good article in that manner. So Nero is correct in indicating that when the Homo sapiens sapiens appeared, there were subsets of Homo sapiens sapiens spreading throughout what is modern day Africa.
What are the other ones?
The Kidaltu.
That's not a Homo sapien sapien.
Okay,
No, it's a Homo sapiens
so
adultu.
Yeah, but that's not us. We are modern humans, Homo sapien sapiens. It's a different species than us.
Yeah, I, Latam, are you trying to say that there were different species, different subspecies of Homo sapiens, or different groups of Homo sapiens
No,
sapiens?
no. Okay, so let's
Well,
understand one thing on this conversation. When we're saying that there were offsets of Homo sapiens sapiens, there was still Homo sapiens sapiens.
what are
What
the
we're
offsets
referring
though?
to offsets is that, for example, if we talk about the Jebel Ihud, if I'm killing the name, I apologize.
Jebel Arud,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah, so I do apologize if I butcher some of the pronunciations because I'm not African. I'm from here, Central America, etc. But I and do not speak the languages. So, if I'm butchering a name, please feel free to correct me. But in that sense, for example, the findings in both Ethiopia or Mogadishu, we see a wide range. In Kibish in Ethiopia, the remains found there were dated in about 195,000 years, and about Ethiopia in give and take 600,000 years. So again, the origin of Homo sapiens sapiens, what is indisputed is that it happened between Ethiopia and could we say anywhere between Ethiopia and Tanzania on that particular area is where the main
Genus
the
was.
main Homo sapiens sapiens appeared. Okay, so
Yeah.
if we can clear that out,
Yeah, from my
then
knowledge.
I would say
Yeah,
not
from
only
my
Homo
knowledge.
sapiens, but most hominids come from that region.
from that region. Okay,
Yeah.
so if we can then agree on that point, and then just specifically concentrate on Homo sapiens sapiens, then okay, we could talk about the Nudutu, Tanzania. Again, if I'm
Well,
butchering it, I apologize.
do you know why that the reason why Jebel Arud is not a Homo sapien sapien is because our species, Homo sapien sapien, is typically associated with late Stone Age material culture industries. They're about 70,000 or so years old, even though scholars debate that. Jebel Arud is like 300,000 years ago. That's like hundreds
Yeah,
of thousands of
yeah,
years
that's not modern
before
But
the
humans.
material evidence of modern humans came
we
into
we
being.
know that Homo sapiens sapiens as a species appeared anywhere between 500,000 to
No,
750,000
not
years ago.
500,000. That's way
No,
too
it's not
early.
modern
It
human.
That's
It's not
way
modern
too
human.
it's
early.
it's kind
It's
of
not
true
modern
because
human.
No,
there's
I'm referring to the Homo sapiens sapiens.
We're not that
we're like
old.
300. We're like
No,
300,000.
not
We're
even
not
300.
500.
We're like
No,
Hey,
it's two. It's
70,000
two.
years old.
There is another caveat to this, right? So there's a recent study on the Y chromosome of Neanderthals, and they were totally replaced by actual Homo sapiens. So the Neanderthal Y
Then,
chromosome
Like
yeah, the
is
40,000 years
Neanderthals,
ago.
then the Novicens were wiped out by
no, no,
the Homo
no.
sapiens
Well,
sapiens.
some of them exist.
That's not what
Technically
I'm
not
referring.
wiped out,
Latam,
but
Latam, I'm
mainly.
gonna Latam. I'm gonna repeat myself. That's not that. I know what you're referring to, but that's not what I'm referring to. So what I'm referring to is a new
Oh,
research, right? That the
uh-huh.
Y chromosome of, and this is before the out of Africa, uh, like 70,000 years ago. So there was even earlier out of Africa migrations that made it into Neanderthal territory and totally replaced their Y chromosome, and they've done DNA to see the benefits of
So
that
what
in Neanderthals.
haplogroup what was that replaced the Neanderthal? It was supposed to be modern human
So
that
it's like
went there that
YDNA A0001.
okay
That's not true. There's no way of knowing that because the replacement happened anywhere between like 50 to 40,000 years ago in Eurasia. So you don't really have evidence of AOO, and it's really difficult to try to correlate like these uniparental markers to archaeological history. Like that's a
Yeah,
tough
but
thing to
wait
do.
but
that's the Y
Kanjiverse
chromosome
but
found in Neanderthals, though.
but
It's
Kanjiverse
not the original one they
we
had.
do know that there was a group that came out of Africa that went into Europe because for a long time they debated if the Neanderthal and modern human met, and that was a debate for a while until they did
Yeah.
genetic testing, and then they did realize that Europeans and everyone that's not in Africa has Neanderthal DNA. So those groups didn't meet in Europe.
Yeah, but when you said when Neru just said you said AOO is found in Neanderthals. Where's the evidence of that?
Yeah, so I want to post the evidence in the chat.
Okay. And also,
All
I
right.
want to say that
Yeah.
when you posted that quote where it says that the Jebel Arud challenges the evolution of our species, what they're saying there is that before they believed that all archaic humans and then pre-human hominids are from East Africa, but now they're finding evidence of them in other areas of Africa and outside of Africa, which we already knew. But the
What
origin
happens is
of the species is that region, like I can't remember the brother's name, but he said from Ethiopia to Tanzania, where you find the Olduvai Gorge, you find the early Stone Age, middle Stone Age, or late Stone Age technologies. That's pretty densely located within that region of East Africa, the Great Rift Valley, so to speak. So that's where the majority of the evolution of hominids occurred on the planet originally before they dispersed across the
Africa.
world.
So I just want to mention on this because
we
I
about
think
to bring it home because people about the
Sure. Let me just make this
gotta go
point
to
and
work the
we'll
next day. So
bring it home. Yeah, me
Hey
too. I
guys,
gotta work tomorrow.
I have a question. When do you guys want to do a part 2 of this?
How we could do it next weekend. That's when I have my best time to sit down, bring my evidence, recollect all my links that I have in my history, etc. So yeah, I mean, what I yeah, let's bring it home. I'm just gonna say as follows. I think that the main thing that we can have a better understanding is that as we have evolved through the anthropological as well as archaeological studies and the findings, is that the hominoids, either Neanderthals, then Ovisans, Homo sapiens sapiens at that time, cannot be viewed under the lens of boom, they appeared and suddenly they were there. We have to view all that dispersal as a fluid motion, as a continuous fluid motion. Why did I mention in regards of that the common ancestor in regards of between the Neanderthal and us, the Homo sapiens sapiens, lived sometime between 550,000 to 750,000 years ago. Mainly, I'm basing myself on the Cima de los Huesos in Atapuerca in Spain. The findings that were done 8 years ago, 9 years ago, was it? In regards of the whole pit of bones that were found there, that gave us that window in that sense. However, all I'm gonna say to bring it home is that in order to understand that dispersal of the Homo sapiens sapiens and the governance of today's Homo sapiens sapiens has to be done under the optic of fluidity, and we cannot fall into the games of a fixed analysis in regards of the anthropological evidence as well as the archaeological ones. That's all I wanted to say. That's it.
All right, thanks. So let's bring it home a little bit. So in the chat, Koku from Bitter Medicine Podcast Candiverse, I put the question up just to bring it back home to the whole purpose of this broadcast that we do. We kind of critiquing Hidden Colors and how it's pseudo and it's a little bit disingenuous and a little bit irresponsible scholastically when it comes to science. So if you can answer that question, I don't know how much you caught of this, but basically what we're trying to say here.
Who is black and who isn't black? So black is a reference to people that are of current African ancestry. So if you're a sub-Saharan African or the descendants of sub-Saharan Africans, meaning us, people of the Americas, then you're black. That's what we're referencing.
I wouldn't say that I agree with that specifically, even though I know what you mean And one of the primary reasons I don't agree with that is if you look at West and Central Africans and you go back like 4,000, years ago, 5,000 years ago, the majority of the ancestors of West and Central Africans are not in sub-Saharan Africa. They would be at the very least in the Saharan zone, if not in the northern reaches of the Nile Valley. But if we take it from a linguistic standpoint and you talk about Blackness and the different African populations who use Black to define themselves, from the Yoruba to the Kikongo, Yoruba saying Adelawo, Kikongo people saying Tiabandombe to define their land, literally calling their writing system Mandombe or the Black writing. This is a Paleo-African trait, and this trait would descend from the Megalayan onward, or 4.2 thousand years ago. Megalayan being the geophysical time scale used to define that time period. So that's like from the Kemetic civilization, all the way downwards to contemporary Africa, where you see the usage of Black, like as a category that African populations use to define themselves. Now, on the flip side of that, there's what Obadeli Obienfo Obadeli Cambone, who is a linguist at Ghana, and he kind of put it to where you can define Blackness in 3 stages. And I'm going to use like geophysical definitions to do this. You could do it from the 100s or the Chibanian period, also known as the Middle Pleistocene. Middle Pleistocene also being the time period that Jebel Arud in Morocco originated from, going from about 774,000 years ago to 129,000 years ago. Then you're dealing with the origin of man and the origin of African populations as they begin to disperse out of Africa from 100 or so thousand years ago to 60,000 years ago. And this would include many of the populations that you call the Jarawa or the Sentinelese Islanders, the Melanesians of the South Pacific. They would be included in that Chibanian Blackness. And believe it or not, there's been some linguists like Lilius Homburger who postulated that there may be some relationship between African languages and the languages of Melanesia, but that hasn't necessarily been proven. But using that Chibanian context, you could say that, these populations from the hundreds of thousands of years ago are Black and descended from Africa. Then you have the tens, and you're dealing with more so the late Pleistocene, and that's from 129,000 years ago onward to 11.7 thousand years ago, before the onset of the Holocene. And you're dealing with the Iranian culture, also called the Ibero-Mauritian culture, and the different populations that, spread out of Africa during the Green Sahara, also coterminous with the Green Arabia period. And some Muslims may like that, dealing with some of the earliest Black populations who populated Arabia. And there's many other people who could be included in that. Some Dravidian populations could be included in that due to their relationship with Eastern Africa and migrations from Eastern Africa. So the late Pleistocene, you could speak about that. And there's many channels online, my channel, other channels who dealt with the dispersal of Africans from the continent tens of thousands of years ago. But the one that we're most comfortable with is the one that I mentioned first, that Megalayan, or that 4.2 thousand years ago onwards. And if you were to use that definition, then you're strictly dealing with Paleo-African populations, the Kemetic civilization, the Kushites and contemporary Africa. So when you really want to define like who exactly is Black, it ultimately depends on the chronological context that you're using and what exactly you want to gain from that question.
And Kamaji, that was masterful in the sense that yes, obviously and I'm sorry if I'm going to pronounce it wrong, because usually I talk this type of things in Spanish. But what you were saying in regards to the middle Pleistocene versus early Holocene eras is accurate in the sense of the evidence that we have in that aspect. But my only criticism is that, and I said it before, let's not fall in a categorization or modern categorization on terms like Black to refer to those then that era, because if so, we are then committing the same error that the pseudos are desperately wanting to
because if we have lexical evidence that they use Black, like you have evidence, 4,000 or 5,000 years ago in ancient African civilizations where Black is used in its cosmogonic sense or its divine sense, its theological sense. Africans use this within their own languages to define themselves. So I don't think that connecting that linguistic phenomena with racialization is fair to the integrity and to the historical evolution of African languages and cultures.
Of course, if we're only specifically talking about African in that particular area, but then if we confabulate that linguistic and the modern colloquial use of that linguistic term to today, it can generate confusion, and I think you would agree that it can, based on that colloquial sense, especially if we're talking to North American United States populations, it creates a whole series of
Well,
confusion.
people under Western cultural hegemony, definitely feel that way. But if you were to talk to, Gaspar Yanga in 17th century Mexico, or the, different city states of the Cartagena region of Colombia, or even the Quilombos of Brazil, and you were to observe their idiomatic expressions when they use "black is beautiful," "black power," "black pride" in the language "preto poder" in Portuguese, or I don't know if you would use "moreno" or "negro" in Spanish, but I'm sure
Negro.
you would be able to find, idiomatic expressions that relate to the same expressions that we see in classical Africa, where blackness is
Yeah, but
connected to divinity, power,
Yeah,
strength, purity,
yeah, but
etc.
our thing is not, we know is that those are the people, those are diasporans. Our thing is on the other side of of the planet when we talk about Asia and Pacific Islanders, because we're saying due to their 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 centuries, thousands of years removed from
move from
being
them.
African. So someone from Indonesia that we would say is black is not the same thing as a Afro Latino. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like
I
Yeah,
that's
mean,
what we're
you
trying
could
to
you
say.
could put it in a chronological context, but when you see Fijians who are really dark skinned with afros who say that they're black and say that their ancestors came from Tanzania, and we have archaeological evidence of it and putative linguistic evidence that needs more research, I wouldn't deny that from them for the sake of establishing a
Oh
greater
no,
black
no.
unity.
Okay, so
no,
let
I
me
mean,
put it.
if you can prove genetic wise that people in the Fiji are closely related to current people in Tanzania, then you would adjust the how you view those people. But what you do know is that people in that region have been there for, at least in the Pacific Islands, have been there for 50,000 years, and they have their own language, and their genetics is at least 50,000 years old in that area, regardless of the physical features that they retain because of initially where they came from, right?
So
If
Well,
you
on
can
that
prove it,
point, I can say that their MFSD12 gene, which is associated with melanogenesis, that which gives us our dark color, is African in origin, and it did not
Yeah,
originate
we're,
in Asia.
we're not denying that. That's because we're by the Sun Belt. We're Sun Belt people. So it makes no sense. That's something that is something that is a benefit to us. So nature, and due to the environment that we're in, they're not
there
going
was
to
no
take
need to
that
get rid of
away
it.
from us. We're going to
Yeah, that's no need to
maintain
get rid
that.
of it.
So that's
so
what we're
And
trying to say, because we
that's
know
what that I
things
think
in
that's what one
nature
of
that
our
look the
original
same
arguments was.
doesn't mean it's the same.
Yeah,
so
so
there are
that's
Strictly
what I
speaking,
several
think.
that
points.
gene is, I
Yeah.
mean, that's the main point that I was trying to make,
Can
is that
can
gene came from
So
Africa, strictly
for
Kamji,
speaking.
can I just say
example,
Yeah.
can I
Yeah,
just say this?
the reason why they have the reason why they have the skin color that they have and the hair texture that they have is because throughout the process of migrating out of Africa, evolution decided that there was no need to get rid of it. That I think that was one of our arguments, that hey, yeah, these people retain these features from this place here because evolution decided there was no reason to get rid of it, but genetically these black looking people, these Afro looking people, are actually more closely related to people that have pale skin and straight hair.
Okay, Kamji, can I
Well,
just
that's
say
because
this?
of the
Kamji,
large amount of
can I
genetic
just
diversity on the continent. Go ahead, Nero.
can I just say this, right? And I'm sure you'd agree with this, right? So
Yeah.
their argument is because those guys have left Africa and separated and uh and basically look the same as Africans because of the climate, right? The looking the same as Africans based on the climate is correct, right? But the word they framing it, they're ignoring they're making Africans to be this monolith, when it is
And
the
that's kind of what I was trying to illustrate is that
No,
like
no,
when you
no,
look at
no. But what we're
well,
saying that
go
there's
ahead.
Africa has the most diverse people genetically
Exactly.
in
Yes.
the world.
Yeah.
What
Yeah, we
we're
know that.
saying to you, only 2 or 3 genetic differences left, and it migrated and it changed through migration. That's it. That's all that we're
Hmm.
saying.
So just to kick in on this real quickly, and I do have to step off because I do have to get ready for work. Monday blues, as they say. But real quickly, Kamji, I think that the major distinction, for example, if we look at the Nahuatl languages, or if we look at the Chifcha languages, and you
Yeah.
did bring up the Valdivia Precolombina, which is interesting. Very few people actually bring up the Valdivia Precolombina. Um, we see a series of combinations of oral and slowly pre-European arrival, as well as written, especially on the Nahuatl, as well as in some Chibcha cultures, there was that combination of oral as well as written. So in the records that we have, the descriptions that those 2 particular major groups that we're talking about here in the Western Hemisphere, I have not found any evidence of a use of black in the sense of referring to themselves as that. There
Wait,
were
is
other
Kukulkan
terms. Huh?
is Kukulkan black?
That's a good one.
Kukulkan.
Coco
Yeah,
Khan, yeah, is he black?
Kukulkan.
Uh-huh. Kukulkan refers to the color, not the individual. Kukulkan was referring to.
That's not a black person according to the mythology.
But Coco Khan, he's basically he's from the Yucatan Peninsula. He's basically
Yeah,
what we would call Central America, South
Uh-huh.
America,
and they call him black.
due to his phenotype. Yeah,
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 it
that's what I'm
but
it don't
saying.
mean
but
black as far as African. That's our
no.
whole
Well,
point.
I mean, yeah.
So
Go ahead.
what? All right. So what we're saying. So here's the next thing, right? So you have other groups of people that they use black, right? And they have historically have used black, but the way they're using black is as a reference to their skin complexion, not to their race. When we're using black as a reference to being of current African ancestry or at the time being of African ancestry. So the a lot of the confusion that we were saying, a lot of the confusion comes around, okay, what is black? How are you using black? Are you using black to reference skin complexion, or you're using black to reference race? Because when you
Oh,
use black but as a reference primarily to skin complexion, everyone gets wrapped up in that.
So
So
okay,
what
can
we're
I just
saying
address
is,
something?
yeah,
Yeah, can I just
and
address
and
something?
and now
So
when you brought up the Kukulkan, what's interesting is that the major description of Kukulkan or Quetzalcoatl was a feathered serpent, and he's usually described in the humanoid form as well. Yes, a dark color individual, but the main sources, especially on the Popol Vuh or the different scriptures, especially on the Yucatan area, and mainly thrown into the Chichen Itza's temples, etc., was a was that of a feathered snake, mainly had green, gold, black. It was a multicolor explanations in that sense. However, at the point being, I think would be that there's no denying that there were dark melanated uh, individuals pre-arrival European with traits that would have been found by Europeans to be similar to what they have seen in African populations at their time.
Yeah,
But
that's all we're saying.
yeah,
You know,
yes,
that's as long as we can keep that line.
Yes,
But we're not saying that. But
and
we're not
this is
saying they're
also,
Okay,
African.
okay, guys,
but this is also the reason why a lot of people got mislabeled, because you had Europeans that came in contact with Africans, and then they went over here and they seen some other people, so they're like, oh, I seen the same people over here. So when they recorded it, they recorded as I seen black people over here, right? But who were the first people that they labeled black, right? What is
I mean, I think it's
yeah, guys.
I
So
think
can
it's a
I?
little
So
bit. Go ahead, Nero.
yeah. So I still need. I'm basically trying to. This is what I define as black, right? So a black person, typically, right? It no matter if they're in uh Eurasia or any of these like non-African regions or Africa, they'll still have the definition evolutionary rules applied to them that apply to all mammals. For example, Allen's rule, Glover's rule, and Bergman's rule, and they'll have the same um, skeletal shape overall. So if you get there's a study called in the Smithsonian about the Naya skull, right? And she comes from an earlier wave of she comes from an earlier wave of Native Americans coming from 30 to 40,000 years ago, right? Those guys had not yet adapted, right, to the cold. So those in the study, it says, right, that those guys would have resembled Africans and South Pacific peoples. Now, we know that in modern literature, they try to not use the word black, but instead they use this alternative, right? They basically reference populations that we know that are black, right? They did the same thing with Lucia, right? When they reconstructed Lucia, Richard Neves, a leading forensic artist, right, reconstructed her face after it was put into a CT scan and said that this woman has all the characteristics of a Negroid woman.
Some scholars came and corrected that, and they said that they made a mistake on the previous reconstruction.
All right, guys.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
this
but
is a
then
very good. Hold on,
the
guys.
issue the
Hold
issue
on,
with
Nero,
that.
Nero, hold on. This is a very good conversation. This is going on forever. It is 12
Yo,
o'clock. I
I
want you to
think
be
yeah,
very
because I got to get up at work. I got to get
yeah,
up at work before. So let's.
yeah,
How
yeah.
about we
So
try this? How about we try this for Friday? Maybe sometime in the earlier part of the evening, maybe around this. I don't know, 6:30, something like that.
put it like this, Bill
Can I ask
Vaughn.
a question? Where are you
I
guys
put
based?
my
Because I'm
email.
from Ireland.
I put
Oh,
my
you're.
email in the chat. I put my email in
I'm
the
in.
chat. Anybody that wants to be to continue this conversation on Friday, my email is in the chat, and we all do it then. So what I'm going to do right now to close out, Nero, you were talking. Just give you about like a minute or two just for your closing statement, and we're going to go around and just close it out from there.
Yeah. And so the study from Lucia says that she was a Negroid, right? But then we get more research from 2014 on this place in Oyo Negro, Mexico, where they found the Naya skull, and they also concluded that basically that the that her cranium was narrow and very similar to that of Africans and South Pacific peoples, rather than say modern natives and people who are like Northeast Asian, basically. So what they're saying in that study is that uh, both waves of Native Americans, the one that came 30,000 years ago and the one that came like 11,000 years ago, come from the same gene pool in Siberia, but they
But they're
arrived in
but they're
different
separated
stages.
by tens of thousands of years.
Yo, Vaughn,
Yeah,
let's let him go because this is his closing out statement. So
yeah.
Nero, you got
So
like 30 seconds.
yeah, so they basically came at different stages of their evolution. So that goes to show that not only that race doesn't exist, but people of different phenotypes can't share the same gene pool.
All right. Thanks for Nero coming through. Again, I put my email in the chat, you know what I'm saying? So we could just figure something out. We could talk during the week to see if we could get this get this done. Camjiverse,
Yeah.
close out,
Yeah,
brother.
no, thanks for having me on. Like, I always appreciate our conversations. And I would say that this has been a very fruitful discussion on all sides. And that, in my personal opinion, it's more fruitful for us to stick with the language and culture, specifically African culture before the Ma'afa, and like deal with how it's been transformed and refined. Because when we stick with Black as opposed to white within a racialized context, we're dealing with, white supremacy from a reactionary standpoint. But when we deal with, our Paleo-African languages, our classical African civilizations, and the different instances that we use Black as an idiomatic expression to empower ourselves to define purity, strength, potency, and all of these positive associations, we can, reconstruct our civilizations in the modern context and then deal with, racism and imperialism from a more proactive standpoint, as opposed to constantly reacting to negative propaganda from the enemy. So that's all I got. And, I hope to, looking forward to the next conversation.
Yeah, man. Thank you, brother. Thank you. I do really appreciate you for gracing this panel as well as you, Naru. Ditso. Ditso, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry, I had to go step
Yeah.
off the bathroom for
No,
a
no
moment.
problem. Just close out, about a minute. Just close out, with your final
Oh
thought.
yeah, no. My final thought is gonna be very simple. We have to, in the interest of the Western Hemisphere, aka America, we have to make a clear distinction of how the populations inhabited pre-Europeans and the impacts of the invasion of the Europeans here and what has led us to today. That being said, that distinction has to be made in the context, in the greater context of how Homo sapiens migrated throughout the whole world. And just to be very concise, we also have to take into account that the categorizations being utilized cannot only be done in English. Spanish, Portuguese, French have to be taken into account, as well as native languages, either the Nahuatl groups, the Chibcha groups, etc., as well as languages in the northern section of America have to be taken into account in order to have a more clear picture of how pre-European inhabitants of this Western Hemisphere described themselves, how they described their realities in that sense. And in that way, we can then break off from the pseudo conversations that have been happening a lot in YouTube that at the end reach no end.
Thank you, Dessa, for that. I agree. I agree. Vaughn, my co-host, is first time he's been on this panel. I knew this conversation would have been a good one. My brother from another mother, literally. It's more my little brother, but my brother from another mother. Yeah, man. Close out, man.
My fellow Aquarius.
Yeah, we Aquarius. Aquarius is running stuff. Yeah, go ahead, brother.
Yeah, don't start with that nonsense.
That's a different conversation too.
Yeah. The astrology sound nonsense. But yeah, listen, I think that black should be used. I think that black should be used as a reference to people that are of current African ancestry, or of African ancestry in Africa at the time. Reason being, if we make the use of black too broad, then it causes too much confusion, and then we start to ignore other populations and their history. And it's something that is we've seen happening now. The other day when someone decided that to say Moana went in search for our ancestors and came back with Negroes, by doing that we grouped all the Pacific Islanders as black in terms of race and not skin color, and they got swept up with African Americans and everywhere else. So now we look over the fact that Pacific have been region now 50,000 years, and they have their own history and the whole shebang. By making black too broad, we overlook other people' culture and their languages and what they have established over the course of tens of thousands of years. And it causes a lot of identity problems within people of the African diaspora. Because the moment you say black is like, oh, all of these people are black, even though these people belong to their own racial group. So now it's used so broad, so ambiguous that we don't even know what we're talking about.
Vaughn,
We don't know what that.
can I just
Yeah.
address something?
Yeah,
So,
real quick, real quick.
so if I were to say, I'm going to give you this example. If I were to, I have a factory, right, and I just produce green squares, green plastic squares, right, and I want to make that same factory, like this factory is in Africa, and I'm going to make that same factory somewhere in India, green plastic squares, right? Those you wouldn't argue just because I uh made that product somewhere else that it's not the same thing. You get what I mean? So when people are saying like you can visibly see like these are green plastic squares.
Yeah,
So
but it's gonna be
when
but it's gonna be plant.
when you're
But it's gonna be
talking
factory number two making the same thing. It's not the same as factory one. But go ahead.
yeah, but let me finish. So the point that I'm trying to make is that when I'm trying not to lose my train of thought. So and the point is like you use the term race a lot, right? Race doesn't actually exist. So I need to address that. So race is the idea that people who look a particular way have a common origin, right? We can debunk this by using the DNA of Black Africans, right? The DNA of Black Africans alone is one way to debunk the actual concept of race. So, for example, and the genetic differences between Africans are much greater than the genetic differences between Eurasians, right? Because Eurasians are a subset of the diversity that was in Africa exported outwards, right? So,
You gotta bring it home in the room because I'm trying to close out. I said real quick. Gotta bring it home real
oh,
quick, brother.
okay. So the point that I'm trying to make, right? The fact that those people just live in another tectonic plate, right, under the same conditions and stuff like that, and have different DNA, quote unquote, to say African groups. There's bigger genetic differences within African groups, so it's all irrelevant. It's all irrelevant at the end of the day. That's my point.
All right. Vaughn, you
Yeah,
was
yeah,
finished closing out?
yeah. But I think what he's saying is that more or less, race is an idea, right? Race is an idea. So in the grand scheme of things, I guess he's saying that it doesn't really matter, and the amount of genetic diversity between Africans alone that destroys the concept of race. But for sake of this conversation, I don't want to do away with the concept of race, because if we do away with the concept of race when it comes to this conversation, it causes deeper confusion and more of the identity issues that we're having in the African diaspora. Because it
Actually,
now makes. Yeah, go ahead.
Now let him go.
I like
Let
to
him
say,
go. We have to close. We have to close out.
Yeah, let them go, Nero. We'll pick this up in a later time
Yeah,
also.
we got to do it.
Yeah.
My emails in the chat. So I'm just gonna pick it up from here. I'm gonna make mine short and sweet. I do understand everybody's perspective. Everybody here is not completely wrong. It's just we have different ways of seeing it. But in the grand scheme of things, we pretty much have to try to put all the pieces back that the Europeans and the Arabs have just destroyed. So it was just us trying to come together and put everything back before they dismantle everything. But I am going to say something that Dr. Clark says: who Black tells you what you look like. Black doesn't tell you who you are. And from that, we need to discover who we are, use the tools of who we are. Look, if someone wants to be a country or a group of people want to say, hey, look, those are my people. Those people, we're going through the same struggle. Those are my brothers in arms. Yeah, no problem. I don't care if they're genetically similar to me or not. If if they're being mistreated just due to their phenotype, whether due to their skin color, then yes. But again, I kind of do side with my co-hosts. We need to kind of like tighten the lines and the bandwidth of who's black, who's not, or whatever. Because again, we don't want to be extending olive branches to people who doesn't want anything to do with us. That only hurt us more than benefit us. But again, I thank all of you for being a part of this conversation. We could talk about this like forever, you know. But again, I said my email is in the chat. So everybody just email me, let me know when's a good day, and we could do this again. We could do this again. I have absolutely no problem doing this again. I enjoyed this. I still had some material that I even was able to present because the conversation went where it went. But again, I thank all of you. Please remember to like, share, subscribe, share the video. And again, you can have this. We can continue having this conversation in the comment section throughout the week. So again, thank you all. Peace, Black Power. Everybody gets to sleep. Some of y'all gotta go to work like me, but thank you all for the conversation, and peace to the chat too. The chat.
Yeah, and I left my email on the private chat, so anybody that wants to write to me also, Coffee, if you can write to me because I lost your. I don't know. I'll try looking for it later, but I'll write to you tomorrow and see if we could set up. You know, we gotta pump this up.
Yeah. I put my email address in the private chat too. I'll try to put it in the description too as well. So you know.
Good night. Good night. I'm gonna head out, man. I appreciate y'all. You heard?
Same here.
All right, man. Yeah, we talk. Peace out, everybody.
Pura vida, Beshko, walk with your eyes open.
Thank you. Hasta luego.
Hasta luego.